Hey guys, it's back to normal-ish. Sorry we missed you guys last week. Just came off our hunting trip and all the other stuff going on in the holidays or whatever the fuck. So, you know, to be fair, we may or may not miss another one before the end of the year because I think Christmas Day is a Saturday too. So I don't think we're going to try to record on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Family stuff's going on. Family first. But anyway, we're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I think we have an Instagram page. I'm not sure. That's AC's job, and he's going to jail for voter fraud anyway, so that's a whole separate story. The website's almostinagreement.com. You can go there to get all the available episodes, or you can go to any of your favorite major podcast providers. Get us there. Please, while you're there, hit the subscribe button, like, share, friend, follow. I don't know, comment, tell us what's going on that we're missing, because I know there are tons of stuff. So, anyway, that's all the contact stuff. So, anyway, help us spread the word. If you guys caught the Chris Davis episode that I did on Friday, it's going to be a busy 2022. It's going to be real busy. We'll talk about that and some other stuff coming up. But first, I think we're talking football. Not really. See, I really wanted to get... I'm sorry. Sam, how you doing, buddy? Let me back up.
I'm doing well. How
Good.
are you, sir?
Good. It's like I haven't seen you like 15 times in the last 10 days or so, but...
I haven't seen you that recently.
No, it's about a week ago. You came over, the night of Thanksgiving for a little bit? Hung out?
Yeah. Was it the last time? Yeah.
And then I may or may not have seen you at work. I don't remember if I did or not. But
friend told me he found us on a service called Pocket Cast.
Uh-huh.
I'd never heard of it. No, apparently he just tried to look up, the quote unquote the best podcast provider. So that's what he downloaded.
Pocket Cast.
I think pretty sure that's what he said.
I thought.
So I was like, I've got Stitcher, which I like. No plugs.
I go between Spotify and Apple. I'm still kind of the walled garden that is Apple products. I'm a fan of. I'm well comfortable inside my Apple garden.
Trying to listen to something on the Apple, and it was a lot harder to search through, like my favorite podcasts or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean,
trying to find specific episodes.
I mean, I'm more of I tout my Rogan fandom regularly, and then when he switched over to Spotify, I've gone and watched, or I've started having to use Spotify for his show, but I don't listen to him as much as I used to. I don't know, because as mentioned in prior episodes that you and I were talking about, like where my news sources are. Although I do credit him as a news source, not like news, but
information news.
Right, information, pop culture, current events kind of stuff, because he talks about a lot of it with whomever happens to be the guest of the day.
He's got a pretty wide variety of guests he brings on.
Yeah, and then if the person he's talking to has some sort of expertise on topic that is a current event topic, then it gets real good. Yeah. Like he has, I think it's Mike Baker, he's a former CIA guy.
I think I've seen one or two of those. Yeah, that's been.
And they start talking about national security and stuff like that. So some sort of thing comes out in the news about the FBI or CIA is doing something weird or crazy. Mike Baker's like, yeah, when we were there, we did this, that, and the other. And it's like, you got to ask yourself, these are the things. Mike Baker cracks me up because I think his kids' names are Butch and Scrappy or something like that. He talks about his kids, and maybe when he's on air he doesn't use their real names, and that's why he does it. But I get the feeling from listening to him, because he's been on a handful of times. I get the feeling from listening to him that's actually his kid's name. It's like, I don't know, that they're very, very cartoon character names for his kids. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Apple covers most of the bases, and then when Rogan went to the exclusive Spotify thing, I started doing some stuff on there. Spotify is a little prettier. I'll give it that. Like it's a nicer aesthetic.
I haven't really tried to use it.
Yeah,
I had Pandora for a while. I mean, still have no desire. I don't really care about the commercials.
I think we have. I think we're on Pandora because Pandora started doing podcasts. We're on Amazon Amazon Audible. We go through there. We're on the Google Podcast Network, and we're on a bunch of them. I try to get us on as many as we can get on. That's why I really like the punchline I do in the intro outro. It's like, hey, if you have a favorite podcast provider and running on it, let me know. Right. Because if either you have the most obscure podcast provider, or it's just one that's a checkbox I didn't check, because basically our server company or whatever, they're pretty up to date on everything. So there's some tech stuff I could probably use some help with. But anyway, Chris Davis, I had Chris Davis earlier today.
Saw that.
He is now officially the most appearing guest, I believe, since we started doing the show.
Is he?
Yeah, and so we were joking about that. So because he and Lauren Ryder were tied, or actually no, he took the lead, and then Lauren came on the city races run and put it back to tied. So now he's standing alone. So I got to call Lauren this week and get her back in here just to say, hey.
Chris, you're gonna have to come back in again. You're no longer in the lead.
I mean, it's very like
you're either first or last.
I mean, he brought it to me like the May primary, depending on what district you're in, is going to be 27 to 29 primary items in Knox County.
Wow.
Then the August ballot, which will be the county general, and the state primaries will be 60 something to 69. Like there's two county commission seats that are on there. Well, there's 4 county commission seats total, but two of the at-larges, and then 2 actual county commission seats. And so, like District 4 county commission, like I am, is not on the ballot. So I'll have 1 less because of that. And so, yeah, like he brought it like so. To review, for those of you who didn't listen to Chris Davis, the May primary will have a city court judge, chancellor, criminal charge judge, DA, public defender, so we can get Sharif, and maybe, I don't know if Sharif's running again, but we can get Eric Lutton back in. Yeah. Because that was a special election last time. This is the normal election year for that seat. The Mayor Jacobs, County Commission, District 3, District 7, 10 and 11 are the at-larges. The trustee, General Sessions Court, Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, Juvenile Court Judge, Sheriff, Circuit Court Clerk, Criminal Court Clerk, County Clerk, Register of Deeds, Board of Education, Districts 1, 4, 6, 7, 9. So if you'll have a Board of Ed seat and a County Commission seat, and that's where the fluctuation is going to be. Everybody else is voting in primaries for everything else. It's just if your district is having a commission and a board seat. And that's the county-only primary, and then all of those will be voted upon in the general in August, and then you're going to add U.S. House for District 2, Tennessee State Senate for 5 and 7, House of Reps for 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 89, which is everybody in Knox County. Republican, if you pull a Republican primary for the state primary, you will get to go on the state elective committee for the Democrats or Republicans. They do that every 8 years or 10 years or something like that. Then all those people prior listed, if you're in Farragut, you get a Farragut mayor and an alderman, Ward 1 and 2. And then in November, there's only like 7 items because it's the governor, state, and state house rep, and then a state senate or a state senate and a state house seat if your districts are running.
Do we have aldermen?
No, Farragut does,
okay.
But it's only the township of Farragut.
So I'll say, I usually only hear that with kind of northeastern cities, and they talk about like Boston, Chicago, kind of big metropolitan areas. And then he told me too that basically any questions that are on ballot have to be on the November ballot. They cannot be on any other ballot. And so we have 3 constitutional amendments. I know that one of them is that Becky Massey one about. So but it's just going to be like a questionnaire. It's more like an opinion poll.
No. This is the Becky Massey one is a state constitutional amendment, and that's the one where where.
But I thought that was still just to get public input. That doesn't matter which way voters.
It depends on
the.
Well, that's the pot one that was been discussed. That's not the Becky Massey one though.
Okay. And
as of right now, Chris Davis at least has not been made aware of the state that one is planning on being on the ballot or not. That one is because as I heard it, because it was a guy from Memphis or Jackson or it was West Tennessee guy that was trying to put it in place, and it's going to be an item during first session of 2020. It's 2022 session of the state house that he wants to get that voted upon there so that it can get added to the ballot. So we won't know about that one until February, March, somewhere in there, and then it has to be on the ballot but it won't be on the ballot till November. But the Becky Massey one is in the state of Tennessee Constitution. If the governor dies, it goes to the vice governor, right, whatever. But if the governor is incapacitated but not dead, there's no written rule in place. The assumption is that it would go to the vice governor and so forth and so on.
Right, but it's not in.
But it's not in writing, and so this is something that because if you remember the state constitution rules, is it has to get passed in a simple majority in one session, Then the following session, it has to have a 2/3 majority. And then it has to be on the next election that includes the gubernatorial race. And so some of these things may be a little bit older that we're going to see, because Chris didn't know exactly what they were. He just knew there were 3. So some of them may be a little bit older, and they got those 2 little session parts out of the way, but they had to wait
so they get the final
for the governor race this year. So they could have this could have been in place per se 3-4 years, almost 4 years ago, but it didn't make it in time to get on to Governor Lee's last election. So I'm curious on it, like, just like early prediction stuff. I think the state GOP is going to be running on vouchers. That's going to be a big item of conversation in those races. Because I think that's one that I think that the
state reps.
I mean, state reps. I mean, it could go down to some of those school board people too. Some people running for school board, even though they have no authority on that topic.
I'll let him outside. Sorry.
That's fine. I was just trying to figure out why he was outside.
He always likes to pretend like he's got to go out there.
He just wants to go and run. Hold on. Anyway, so I just think that's going to be I think that's going to be a major conversation item, whether or not it's the.
You think that's going to be the leading topic, or
I mean, yeah, because I think
main topic.
If you look at one of the most, I mean, at least this year, if you look at the most, for lack of a better word, like inciting topics, things that get the most people enraged and or engaged recently. What items do you think they would be that items that you could take a side on? I guess would be important.
Quote CRT is probably the
right.
I would say is more in the forefront than vouchers.
I mean, I think
vouchers have been thrown around for a few years.
Right.
It's been
But I think here in Knox County specifically, with the mass things and with the weird mass thing going on in the state, the federal court coming in and stepping in and forcing masks on. Because I mean, like I think earlier this week. The city of Knoxville no longer requires masks in their facilities.
I've heard a couple of different things, yeah.
And it's like, well, why are the kids still in masks in the schools if the city buildings don't require masks anymore?
They've kept it on public transportation, so CAT, you still have to worry if you get on CAT.
No, I don't care either way. Whatever, if the city just thinks it's the appropriate move, then the city thinks it's the appropriate move. It's just that it's just that inconsistency in place where it's like, well, kids have to wear them to school, but random people don't have to wear them in the city county building anymore. It's just kind of weirdly inconsistent. Anyway, I guess to me, I think at least locally here, I think if you're running for Senate 5 or 7 or any of because House of Reps every 2 years, they're going to be Manis and Gloria Johnson and Sam McKenzie and Zachary Lafferty.
Zachary, yeah, both of those.
Yeah, they're all going to be on ballot this year, and I think for Knox County, at least for Knox County reps, I think you could make the argument that could be, you could make that a major part of your campaign. And I think the GOP candidates will make that a part of their campaign, not vouchers specifically, but the school choice conversation, this other kind of bullshit that Lee's been floating around. I think if Lee gets reelected, he's going to push vouchers in. I think that's his goal. That was his goal anyway. He's been vocal about it prior to being elected the first time. And I think that he's going to he and anybody that's running in this election is going to take that as this is something they want us to do. That's why they voted for us. A mandate from the populace, for lack of a better word.
They voted for me. They want me to do whatever I feel like I want to
fucking
do.
Doing. Right.
Yeah.
So
they wouldn't have voted me in if they didn't want me to do whatever I wanted.
Jump back a second. City elections, 19% of eligible voters voted.
The most recent.
Yeah. That's fucking sad. Well, what's sad about it is that's good.
Was that up compared to last time?
It didn't quite match the 19, but the 19 had a mayor's race in it, but it blew this 17 out of the water. It was very close to the 19 in total turnout.
That's some upside. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's better, but it's still it's better than awful. So it's less awful. But 19% total elected in that. And so, which, I mean, Chris made a good point. Generally speaking, when you don't have 5 incumbents, have 5 challengers the way we had this time.
Say again?
he was saying like you generally don't have 5 incumbents that aren't getting termed out.
Okay.
Just it was a weird little ism of time where you had all 5 people were eligible incumbents, where they weren't getting termed out, so all 5 people were running to keep their seat. And so while yes, historically you would almost always have somebody running against them, there wasn't as much because usually you don't have all 5 at the same time. Usually you would have like 3. And then 2 of the tickets were going to be 2 or 3 of them were people that were termed out. So you had 2 new candidates. And so 2 new candidates tend to bring more people out than an old candidate and a new candidate, I guess is what the feeling I got off of that was. But
I wonder how far, well, I'm assuming he's got access to information, how far going back if, for the past 20, 30 years, that's been consistent, 15 to 20% of eligible voters vote.
I mean, it is definitely researchable. I would want to do it on air. That'd be kind of boring, but I think it's something you could definitely do. I mean, you could just look up gross numbers, and you'd have to go and Google.
I'm just wondering if this is a common trend. I mean, it sounds sad when you think about it. It's like,
well,
really?
I mean, the more, and that's 19% of registered voters. That's not 19% of residents.
Right.
Even if you take out like 40% for under 18. It's still, in the 10 to 15% range. It's a low number.
I think they kick you off the voter rolls. Is it 2 major? Well,
I don't remember. He was talking about that, but yeah, we were joking about trying to figure out the ratio of math of how many registered voters are against the population, whether there's a consistent ratio there. Because I was like, I think he said like he's concerned. I don't know, concerned maybe not be the right word, but he had mentioned that he is anticipating a large number of new registrations in the next few months, or not in the next few months, from now until May, because as these elections start ramping up, all these people that have moved here that haven't registered yet are going to start registering to vote here. Because I was talking about how I think
been that large of an influx of.
I mean, we don't know per se, but I think that's a data point that can be looked at. He thinks he's like anecdotally, yeah, you see people moving in all the time. The housing market's out of control, blah blah blah, all this different stuff we're talking about, and so. Theoretically, at least, but that's what I was joking about. It's like if we could figure out the ratio of registered voters to total population and compare that from census to voter rolls, then we could figure out if there's a ratio there. Then, even though the census is now over a year old, when we get up to this election and we have all these new registrations come in, we can apply that ratio and say, well. What the census said, like 560 countywide. It was like it was maybe it was like 515. It was 500,000 right in or up. I'm just saying, like if the ratio works right, and we have a big jump in registered voters, then that it might more honestly be like a 600. We might be up to, we might be up a big number because I think we've grown a lot since the census was taken. I think if the census was put off a year, we'd have even bigger shift. That's the other thing we're waiting on, too. We don't have the statewide redistricting in place yet. Yeah. So that's going to mess around. But that was interesting, too. Oh, my God, that was a really interesting thing he was talking about. So he was on the redistricting committee. It's not a requirement of law, but it is strongly encouraged that the administrator of elections is part of it. He was saying normally, historically, when they're doing it, the timing's a little better than this COVID version.
Right.
And so basically he was saying that they kind of got screwed where it quite often the election commission
will have been meeting for a
time.
No,
the election commission will break up precincts prior to a redistricting because you have a larger precinct, let's say, that's on the edge of a district, and some of the numbers need to move from one district to the other, but the whole precinct's worth of numbers, because that's how everything moved by precinct. Right, so it wasn't just like neighborhood lines; it was precinct lines. So it was a polling station went from District 3 to District 4, and then everybody that voted at that polling station, that precinct, got shifted.
Okay.
And so he said historically, what they would do is they'd break some of them up, and take a larger one and turn it into 2, and then take one of those pieces and move it to a new district, and that gets the numbers right, so they don't have to worry about the rest of it. And so, he said since COVID and all the different stuff, since COVID got the census to them late, the city election had already, like the actual period of city election had already started. And he's like, I'm not changing precincts. I'm not going to mess with precincts in the middle of a city election.
Right.
And so we have to wait till after we have to either use the precincts we have or wait till after the city election, then re-precinct and then do it. And it's like, by that point, there's not enough time to get it turned in the time that they're required to be done with it and have it in place.
So they are going to be able to redistrict before elections next fall?
Yeah, they're already done. It's already done. I don't think it officially goes into effect until I think mid-December, a couple of weeks. I think before the end of the year, I think it goes into effect. I think the state has till February, because that's what's weird is, and he actually didn't say this on the show, and he was clarifying to me after county races. The drop off for the petition pickup date is mid-December, but the statewide races can't pick up until February. So I'm assuming the state has to have it redistrict before those petition pickups for candidates.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because you can't
want to put in a petition.
Right,
for
I'm going to run for District 18, and then I get.
We're so sorry.
Right.
You're not in that district anymore.
Right, that district.
Better.
Sorry, Jennifer Owen.
Better luck in 2 years.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of. It's it's I don't know. It goes into some of the fucking craziness. And so apparently, it's still so weird to me because I go back to this the Eddie Manis Gina Oster thing all the time. There's not really. It doesn't seem like there's a procedure necessarily in place, but there's a norm. So if I want to go and I want to run and I say I'm a Republican, the election commission's like, okay, whatever. But at some point in that process, the party will come down and audit that role.
Audit your application essentially, or
to be a Republican. They can't change anything about you running. They just say whether or not you can run with the R next to your name or not.
Huh.
But there's no it didn't I was trying to ask him. I was like, is there a specific date where there's a date where it has to be done by? Or the election commission's like, nope, we already started printing shit. You're stuck with it. But it seemed it wasn't like the election commission is like, we don't do any of the legwork. This is the list we have. You want to tell us this list is wrong? Fine, we'll fix it. But other than that, we just produce the list.
All right.
And so it's on the parties to go do their thing. And speaking of parties, the Daniel and the Knox County GOP did their paperwork to get the school board elections officially primaried, partisan primaries.
Right.
Because that was another weird thing I was asking Chris about. It's the way it reads is that it's the state. The thing they put along in the state is actually plucked a little piece of something out of the county charter. Is really what the state law did, and it basically plucked a little piece out and made it so they were allowed to be partisan. They're not required to be partisan. They're just allowed to be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I heard.
Right. And so basically, obviously the state GOP put this thing together, presuming the state GOP talks to the local GOP. And so Daniel Herrera, presumably on instruction from the state Republican Party, immediately fills out the paperwork as soon as he's allowed to make the school board races partisan. But theoretically, if Matt Shears and the Democrats didn't do anything.
They announced earlier this week that
they did.
They're having primaries.
They haven't done the paperwork yet. It's due by next Friday. That's what Chris was telling me. But yeah, they put a press release out, and then Matt Shears was all pissed off because they did a story about how to snore less in your sleep instead of talking about his thing on the news that night. Really? Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's the news, man. What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, I think I heard it mentioned on the local NPR station.
I saw it on. Compass talked about it, and then I saw it on Facebook because of Matt or the Knox Times page or something like that.
Yeah. I don't like it, but it's what it is.
Well, what's most interesting to me is as far as the procedure and the facts on the ground and how they work is if the Democrats didn't do it, everybody runs as independent. So it would be the Republicans have a primary, and I
think it would just be their loss to not do it. Like you said,
I agree it would be their loss, but I'm just saying functionally, regardless of which party we're going to talk about. But since the GOP did it first, we'll go down this rabbit hole for a second. So the GOP does it and Democrats don't, right? They don't petition to do a primary. So what it would end up being is the GOP would have a primary and they would narrow down 2-3 people into one. Well, anybody else that wants to runs as independent. You wouldn't have a D on the ticket, but it doesn't negate a Democrat from running either. You just don't get to narrow it down to one Democrat. If 2 Democrats want to run for that seat, they're now going to be running as independent against the one GOP candidate, but they'll be running against each other. And it's not. I agree, it's not in their best interest functionally.
But it could be for any number of eligible independent voters.
Any voters, period. You don't have to be an independent voter. You don't get. There is no primary, so there could be 6 people that make it to the general.
Right. Yeah, that's
because none of the independents have to primary. If you run as an independent and you get your 25 signatures,
so they could put. There could be as many independent candidates in there as people that applied, essentially.
Right. If you get the signatures and run as an independent, you are on the general ballot.
Right. Okay.
You don't have to campaign. You don't have to do anything. You just have to get the right number of signatures. If you're in the GOP, you got to pay $25 if you're running for county commission. That's fucked up. GOP is charging to run for GOP.
So saying, I can't remember I sent you the number last week or week before when I heard about that.
Yeah, I saw
something like $5,000 or.
Yeah, for top level stuff. But I mean, I think
for state reps. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we were talking about it too, and I think for that level of stuff, I think it's really a seriousness fee. How serious are you about doing this?
Right.
Because I would assume.
The party's going to get behind you and throw money towards you as well.
Right, and they're going to campaign for you, and they're going to fundraise for you, and it's going to be, if you're serious about what you're doing, it's an investment, and I'm assuming you're going to get that or more back. I think as a donor, I'd be pissed if I donated to you to run for a seat, and you have to pay somebody else to make it okay that you can run for that seat. I'm going to be like, no, fuck that noise. I wanted that money to go to get you elected, not to get you into a party.
All right.
But I don't know. I think it's kind of dirty, but I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I mean, hell, you got some of these people that spend more money campaigning than they make in the job they take.
I guess the real question is how much of that funding is, because I'm assuming the parties are considered nonprofits, so they're in a separate tax bracket.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're able, how much of those, or how much of their funding they're able to kind of write off, not necessarily as loss, but as something that doesn't count against him, I guess, at the end of the year.
I mean, what do they spend their money on? And, I mean...
supplies, staffing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, do they get taxed on savings, really is what it is. If they take in $1 million this year in revenues, for lack of a better word, in donations and campaign contributions...
Do they have to use it within that year?
If they don't
hold on to it?
Right, if they don't use it...
Squirrel it away for the next session.
Right, so it's an odd year. So, it's 2021 right now. And they're fundraising all this money that they plan to use in 2022, but they have a whole staff of people that are getting paid to do whatever the fuck you do on a staff. Right. But you're not actually doing anything. I don't know. That's a good question. Be something interesting to do. But I was thinking about talking to him, man. I mean, we're talking hundreds of people running in 22. There's gonna be hundreds of people that go through the process and petition.
There's gonna be so many signs.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about it. I mean, because the problem is, you know, if I leave the state part out and I only do county elections, that's still 30-ish races, which are presumably some won't have challengers. It might just be one person running by themselves.
I still see signs out for
Clanaris is still around
for the last election.
There's one Jim Clanaris sign down the street that's still there. Other than that, I've seen most of them cleaned up.
I've seen there's a David Hayes out by my house that I drive by.
He didn't even make it through the primary.
I know.
Jeez.
I don't know if it's just that one house that supports him or something.
Maybe it's his house.
Possible.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's going to be like, I was thinking about it. It's like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, I couldn't get all the city people on here, and that was 10 people. 15 or 13 with the three people that didn't make it through the primary.
Well, you had a couple people that just never responded back.
Right. I mean, I had time to get everybody who was just scheduling and a little bit of that, and then just some people that didn't want to do it. P lady.
Right.
But I mean, you know, Mayor Jacobs won't give me the time of day. Okay, whatever. Whoever runs against him might, if anybody runs. I'm assuming Matt Shears is going to find somebody to put up against him. I know that Matt told me, he didn't give me a name, but he told me they had a couple people they're already talking to about running for sheriff. So, you know, we're going to have the Jimmy and Tom primary, and then that person's going to run. And so it's like, I mean, the timing of this is going to be ridiculous if I'm going to try to get a good number of people on, because it's essentially going to be from, you know, I think he said pickup was December 20th, and final to turn in your petition is like the first week of February. So February, most of February, shortest month of the year, March, April, and then the primaries first week of May. So I have like 3 months to get 100 people in here. It's not. I mean, it's one a day, and that's not even going to get everybody if I do one a day.
I just have to do some more phone interviews. Pick a couple days and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna call you at 12, and then I'm gonna call you at 12:45.
Give me 20 minutes, and I'll just put a whole race into one show. It'll be the 3 different people running for General Sessions Court Judge, district or seat 1 or whatever, and I'll do a 20-minute with each of them and then shove them together and make it a 1 hour long episode.
We got to get your friend back in here for the judges' elections to get kind of his
lawyer Jamie.
Yeah.
You need to talk to him about that because I mean, and again, that's what I was joking with Chris Davis about that. I was like, what I need to do, if I had the time and energy, what I need to do is find somebody who has had the job. So, somebody who's retired of a retired judge from Knox County. And talk to him about what the job is and try to get one episode where it's just here's the job. Here's what here's what this person did when they were in the job. This is a measuring stick that we can measure conversationally from this person to that person. Problem is, especially with judges, there's rules about what they're allowed to talk about. They can't talk about how they would rule on a case.
Right.
And it's like, well, how am I supposed to evaluate you on the job you're supposed to do if I can't give you a hypothetical for you to try?
I would think they would be able to answer on a hypothetical.
I don't know.
If you were able to come up with like a good scenario of,
But I mean, but again, like in my understanding of it, I couldn't go and find a case that's already passed and case law has already been put on the books and be like, hey, on this, I don't know. See, again, I don't understand. Like, I get blur the lines between who's what. Like, I think, like district attorney's on here too. So Charm Allen's up for re-election.
Yes.
Like, could I talk to her and talking to her be like, hey, if you could go back, maybe not her because she did it, but somebody running against her, be like, hey, on this Austin East shooting where the cops came in and shot the kid in the bathroom, and Charm decided that, looking at the evidence, she decided that there wasn't evidence to say that the police officers acted improperly or whatever, and so no charges were filed. Is that how you would have run that? I don't think they can. I don't think they're legally allowed to answer that question.
And I think most wouldn't want to step into that either.
But I mean, I think to me, it would
at least someone locally, like.
But to me, that's a job interview. It's like, what would you do in this situation, especially if I'm interviewing you to replace somebody that already exists? How would you have dealt with the situation that they had?
I mean,
the same or different?
I would think any intelligent lawyer is going to say it would all depend on the facts of the case.
Right, but blah, blah, blah. That's why I pulled that one out, because it was very public here locally. Like, well, here are the facts that we know publicly, and it's a lot of them. We got the video, we got a bunch of different stuff. I mean, and I honestly, I think, what little attention I paid to the district attorney prior, I think that her press conference, I think she was very smart about the way she did her press conference when she came out to say, no, we're not going to place charges on these officers. Because she did that hour-plus long press conference where they went through the video frame by frame almost and talked about all the different stuff.
Right.
And then said, and that is why I'm not bringing charges against these officers. I thought that was a very smart move on her part.
She made a point to say, like, hey, we were going to go public about this, but there was such a high demand of people wanting to know, like, what's going on with this.
Right. And I still think I still think the rules of body cam, who gets to say whether body cam is public info or not, I think that's kind of weird. But again, I respect the way she did it. But that's the only reference I have for her. Yeah. She hasn't arrested AC for voter fraud yet. Learned about that too today. Yeah. So if you were registered at your parents' house and you moved out, it's actually that is truly voter fraud definitionally. So if this is so dumb, I'm sorry. When you get on the CNNs or the Fox News or whatever and they start talking about election fraud, if anybody ever says no, there's no election fraud, they're full of shit. Because according to Chris Davis, there were at least 12 people in Knox County last year that he reported to the DA's office for election fraud, and mostly it being that they didn't live in the house that they were registered to vote in.
Right. I don't think anybody ever said that there's
a lot of people that had said there was no fraud in this election. Quote, That's a point stupid joke. I'm sorry for bringing it up. But that was it. That was a punchline joke. I don't think that it's not about whether Trump won the election or not. I'm not trying to dig that QAnon bullshit back out. Speaking of, QAnon's all pissed off because the pilot...
JFK... Oh, I thought you were going to say, JFK Jr. didn't show back up.
No, the pilot...
Did you see the video of fucking people that were, like, huddled at... there was a site where his dad was shot, but they gathered there in Dallas, yeah, because they thought he was coming back that day. And I think it's happened like twice now in the past.
I have no idea what
month.
You're talking about this JFK Jr. thing returning.
There's some crazy QAnon belief that JFK Jr. didn't, because it was JFK Jr. died in an airplane crash
in the ocean.
Yeah, in the ocean.
Yeah, because he was drunk with a hooker or something like that. Yeah, I remember.
I don't think he was flying. I think he was in the back.
I think he was flying a hooker.
I don't think he was flying.
But there was a hooker. That's you don't deny. Or then he was drunk.
I never heard.
But
I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone for being like drunk on your own personal private jet
with a hooker. Again, there's no fault there. I'm just stating the facts of the case as I recall them.
I mean, I would think with that kind of altitude, well, that's pressurized. So let's say you drink like one or two glasses of some Cristal and not have to drink 2 bottles of Cristal. Right. You can just drink one.
You're shit hammered. But no, apparently a bunch of QAnons freaking out because the pilot for the Epstein thing was on the stand for the Maxwell case and testified that Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Beyonce, Bill Gates, he testified a big list of people, but Trump was on that list of people. And if Trump's supposed to be the anti-child sex trafficker guy, what is he doing going down to Epstein Island and this, that, and the other? And so they're all trying to spin, like a bunch of QAnon people are trying to spin why Trump was going there for recon and kind of bullshit like that.
Yeah. But no, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was probably at least a couple to a few hundred people that met in Dallas that thought that. And it was weird because I think there were like kind of dual beliefs that JFK Jr. was going to show back up or that JFK himself was going to show back up. But a lot of QAnon people believe that JFK Jr. is still alive and that he was going to come back and, I don't know, enlighten the world with his knowledge that since he's been in hiding for 20 years or whatever it is now.
With Tupac and Biggie and
Elvis.
Yeah, I don't know about I will indulge in a conspiracy theory or two, and I'll fall down the rabbit hole a little bit, but bringing people back from the dead is kind of where I draw the line. Yeah. Now, people killing people, that one I'll get on board with. A lot of those high-profile people murdering people, or people, what do they call it, suiciding? I don't want to say the name, but the Clintons like to suicide people. I can't remember who it was. That reporter, that Rolling Stones reporter that did the general. They made the movie about it. They got embedded with the general.
Not ringing a bell.
Yeah. Anyway, what's his name? That handsome bastard. Brad Pitt played the general in the movie. Anyway, some general was doing some Afghanistan stuff. They ended up this pilot or this. Rolling Stone journalist was rolling with him for a while, and then that volcano went off in Iceland or whatever, and like all of Europe was grounded for a while. Well, that's when the reporter was supposed to fly back to New York to write a story or whatever, and can't fly, and so he ends up just hanging out. And so it goes from this reporter guy and the general and all his people are on their best behavior because there's a reporter there, to it just being a guy that they've been hanging out with for a couple months. So some shit came out in the story where like he talked shit about. The general spoke poorly of Obama at the time, who was the president at the time, and this, that, and the other, and ends up getting the general fired. And then this writer mysteriously runs his car into a tree.
This happened?
Mm-hmm. Oh. But, he had Adderall in his system, but, he's a journalist. Pretty much, apparently they all do.
Possibly.
So, anyway, that's I don't know. Look it up, people. I don't remember the facts.
I think I've sent you one of them.
Pistorius? Anyway, sorry.
Petraeus?
Not Petraeus. It was like Pistorius or something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter.
The Pistorius was...
fine. Okay, fine.
He was the African runner.
With no legs that murdered his white girlfriend. Yeah.
Oscar Pistorius. Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Brad Pitt. That's my cousin.
No, it kind of makes me feel good and bad, but I think I sent you one of the articles, or AP, at least like once or twice a week, puts out of things that didn't happen this week.
Yeah.
Where they find like popular things that have been out there on like, Facebook and Instagram and all this other shit.
Oh, snap. Brad Pitt was a producer on the Lego Master show.
What?
Oh, we enjoyed that one. That's fun to watch with the baby.
But some of the stuff, I'm glad that I haven't actually seen it, which I'm admittedly not on social media much, but I'm also glad that I haven't seen this shit either.
Yeah.
It was one I was reading today that apparently there's a story that Kyle Rittenhouse was suing LeBron James for defamation.
Okay.
It was a story that was going around apparently. It's like, no, that didn't happen.
There's been
it's some like the weirdest shit, and I'm like, this has gone viral and people believe this stuff. Like, this is fucked. I mean, I don't know if we're just that gullible or just that, not really apprehensive, but suspicious of anything now. Where it sounds so crazy, but like, I don't know, I'm just not sure. And that was, I think I did hear a little bit about this movie.
Yeah, The War Machine. With the Bradley,
that was one like the scariest thing with like some of like the QAnon stuff is it was scary that they don't know that it's not true. It's not that they really believe it, but they're at that kind of like mental mind frame of they don't know that it's not true.
Right.
And that's where they're kind of like stuck in that kind of quagmire. Like, I don't know, like maybe.
I mean, I think, and okay, so what's the solution there? Like, that's one of those things that's very interesting to me. Not to pull the AC out on it, but I mean. Like, I think I agree that I think that's a major problem, and that one, I think I guess to me the issue is that some of the shit that's pretty conspiratorial isn't without precedence in the world we live in. And that's part one of where I think the problem is. I think the media's amazing ability to be untrustworthy right now is part two. And then part three, I think, is the way social media, first of all, I won't say allows. I don't like that phrasing because I think social media, the point is for people to say whatever the fuck they want. But the way social media algorithm pushes things around, and if you're susceptible to get into those things and start arguing about it and start being more interactive with it because it's one of those things or whatever, that it pipes more into you, so the echo chamber gets harder. Right. So I think just a quick little 3-point thing. I think those three things are at play. And I think the social media one is the least problematic of the three, to me. Because I mean, individuals, our government, whatever you want to call it, have done things ridiculous, like unbelievably, like if it wasn't actual history, you would say, no, that's some made up bullshit.
Right.
And it was treated as made up bullshit when it was happening because they didn't want to admit it or whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and so it's like, well, it's not unbelievable that our government would do something crazy. All right, so that checks that one off. Our media does a weird job of not being trustworthy even when they're telling you the truth on it, or the media has such a good history of being untrustworthy about other things that, well, they might be telling you the truth today, but I don't trust you because you lie to me about everything else. So the only it somehow becomes that random guy from Portland, Oregon is the most trustworthy guy you know on the internet, and he's just some guy on the internet that you've never met, and he's just talking shit. Because I agree, I think that's weird. I think that the idea that it's not that I believe it, it's that I don't not believe it, I guess is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically.
You know, I don't read it and go, oh, that's dumb. My reaction is,
that kind of makes sense.
Right.
And the people that are writing that, I mean, know this in their mind. I mean, they're writing it too to like kind of pull at the little strings.
Yeah. I just think, I don't know. I think we have an issue. It's an institutional issue to me.
That's a mixture of things.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, the institution of social media is one of them.
I've said for a while. I mean, this with kind of like the media aspect of it. I think a lot of it's. I mean, we've seen newspapers and all sorts of things that have gone under just because they're not able to make enough money. So there's that drive for getting sponsorship.
Clickbaity, bullshittery.
Yeah, you've got, with more things going more and more online, that's what's getting that revenue is you're able to go to an advertising agency and you're like, hey, we get so many clicks on this website.
See, but I kind of have to call...
And the advertising companies are only going to want to advertise on things that are getting high traffic. Because why are they going to pay to put an ad on a site that nobody's going to?
Right.
Yeah, they're getting their name out,
but
nobody's seeing that.
See, but that's not a fair argument either, because the way most internet ads work is you get paid by views. So it doesn't matter. It's not a static ad. It's not like I put my ad on your story. It's I put my ad into the system, and the system will shove my ad into your story. But the next time somebody opens that story, the same ad may not be in there. The ads might change over time.
That may be how some contracts work. But with fucking bots, I mean, if I was an intelligent ad agency, I would work up a contract to where, and then find ways to get bots to add a fucking 5 billion clicks to a link, and like,
I mean, it's been done.
You owe me a few $1 million.
I mean, that's exactly how Facebook and Google ads work.
I'll show you the thing.
But I mean, that's exactly how Facebook and Google ads work. Like we can't advertise on Facebook because we're associated with our other business, and so I'm not allowed to advertise on Facebook. But I try to set up an ad for the podcast on Facebook, and it's literally, pick your demographic. Do I want to do the United States? Do I want to do the world? Do I want to do just Tennessee? Do I want to do just Knox County? So I'd pick Knox County. It's a couple surrounding counties. City of Knoxville, people 18 to 45, I think was the bracket I put in there. Ran it through, ran it down, put all this stuff in. And you click go on a Facebook ad. What you're saying is that you're buying this many impressions. This many people are going to see it.
See the ad, or you're getting paid for when people actually click on your ad?
You can do it either way. Generally it's impressions.
So for free, you can just have that ad on there? Because that's what an advertising is. It's just you seeing it.
But no, it's not going to be on there. That's what I'm saying. Impression means that when you're scrolling through your feed, it's in your feed.
Okay.
That's an impression. We're going to put it in X number of feet. Actually, I take that back. You were correct. It's per click, not per impression. Because they will show you your impressions, but if it doesn't get clicked on, you don't have to pay for it. And so it's like...
there's free advertising right there.
Sort of. I mean...
I'm assuming you've got to pay to get those impressions for that to be on there.
I don't believe so. But the point... Because Facebook goal is to get clicks for you. Like you said, they could put a bot in there and click it 10,000 times, because then they can collect a nickel per click, and now they collect whatever the math is on that, $5,000. That's not right. $1,000.
Okay, wow.
Whatever. No, $2,000. Fuck. Anyway,
$250,000.
Sure.
$1 million.
But anyway, that is legitimately how it works, because it only counts if they put it in and they get interaction with it, and so it works the same way on, I'm assuming, on like a CNN or any of the other their websites, because those blocks that are ads, they change like every time you go on there. Even if you read the same story, that the ad that was in the story last time is not the same ad next time.
But if you look at newspapers, which apparently we can't find anymore, last time I looked for one in a fucking gas station, I didn't want it to read it. I wanted it for kindling and start a fire. But
right, it's $2 fire starter.
Couldn't find a damn newspaper.
No, it's like a $4 fire starter. Like Sundays are expensive now. Anyway,
that's where most of the ads are. But I mean, there's sections where it's 2 to 3 full pages of all just ads. And some of them look like they're news stories, but it's just advertisements.
That's the grossest thing on the websites to me. When you go through and like you actually read a story, like I'm reading a story about this on WBR's website, and as you scroll down to the bottom of the story,
sponsored ad.
There's sponsored ads underneath it, but they're like they look like they're another story. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about homeowners rates in Knoxville, and it's all of a sudden you're on a mortgage company's website. It's like, no, it read like mortgage rates at an all-time low, and it's like, well, that sounds like a news story. I'm curious about how mortgage rates are now. Oh no, you're in an ad,
right? And
so. It's some shady shit the way they move that around. But again, I kind of call bullshit on that too, though. It's because Compass is a good example. It's not. I don't know. I'd be curious. I don't know if New Sentinel distribution is publicly available, but I'm sure New Sentinel is out circulating Compass, but not by a ton.
Digitally or.
I mean, both, anything.
Well,
Compass is only digital.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, I would say that I mean, that is, it's very basic. They don't go, they go decently in depth, but they don't go like super in depth. They don't do any like major investigative story. It's literally just current event. But they are a viable news source of two people that put out solid news, and people pay for it. They don't consume ads to pay for it. They actually pay out of pocket for it.
Right.
And so the subscriber model works.
Well, what was that? I don't know if you ever read that story that I sent to you. When it was, I think it was a New York Times article that was talking about ways that some communities have found to make money. And they kind of made the reference to, museums and stuff, how the city will ask citizens for donations to keep, a museum or a theater. And so there were some news agencies that started doing that, basically almost not really soliciting, but they're like, hey, the local newspaper's gone, but if we can get enough people together and you guys can help fund this, we can get you a great local news source. You can literally help fund keeping yourself informed of what's going on in the city.
Right. Which, I mean, again, but I think I think you could do, again, the Compass proves the point that you can do a subscription model news service that's not particularly expensive, really. I mean, I think we pay $70 a year for Sunday only of the New Sentinel. And that's really just so we get puzzles and coupons. We pay $100 a year to have Compass.
Yeah.
And I get stuff every day from them. Now, that being said, my Sunday only subscription also gets me full access to the New Sentinel website. So I get the online subscription too. But, again, we only get it for the puzzles. But I get my point being is I think there is market for good news. Not good news as in happy news, but in good quality journalism. I think there's market for it. And I am confused on why there's not more people jumping into the game. I'm confused on why it seems like the big players keep moving further away from journalism and moving more into editorialism, which is fine if they would just call themselves an editorial and not a news company.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if part of it is a lack of concentration, focus. No,
fortitude, constitution,
like attention span, I guess.
Right.
To where it's easier now just to kind of get those short little blurbs. People are more willing to read, that short little blurb versus.
But the question, I get what you're saying. And
reading a full news article.
The question is that sustainable though?
Is it sustainable?
At scale? I don't think it doesn't seem to be sustainable. Because that's I think why it's getting more extreme as we watch it happen. It's getting more clickbaity, and more people are getting into the clickbait game because it has to be.
Well, I think TikTok's a point of that, to where they're like, hey, here's this video. It's only a minute long.
Yeah,
it's never going to be a minute longer, or it's never going to be longer than a minute, or whatever their limit is on it.
Right.
But it's all short. It's a whole bunch of just really short stuff.
Right.
It's doing great. It's doing awesome. People love that shit.
Right.
They just read a bunch of short little videos, short little news stories.
I mean, to be the Homer dork that I am and a big Rogan fan that I am, Rogan has consistently one of the top podcasts in the nation, and he doesn't do them under 2.5 hours.
True.
So the attention span's there.
I wonder how long someone has to watch those things before it counts as a full listen.
He talked about it on one episode.
At least half or 2/3.
It's not. I think there's. I think it's like 20 minutes for it to count as a view. I think it's 3 minutes to be monetized as a minimum. I know that from John Boy. John Boy cracks me up. John Boy's a baseball guy. Because he does these videos.
John Boy and Billy.
Now, he does these videos, and he just talks about random little plays. He's like, here's a really cool play you don't see a lot of times. You don't see this often. And he'll break down this play and talk about it. And sometimes it only takes him 90 seconds. And so he'll be like, and that's it. That's the end of the video. There's nothing else to see. Go ahead and turn it off. I just have to make sure it's at least 3 minutes long so YouTube will pay me. And so he'll just ramble for the remaining time to get it to 3 minutes, so it's a 3-minute video. And it's really, really funny the way, it just cracks me up every time. Just some crazy weird play. He'll break it down in a minute, and then he'll just tell you how much you don't have to watch the rest of what he's doing because he just needs to make sure it gets to that 3-minute mark.
I think you were telling me a story about some other guy that does that. That be like, all right, the video's over, and now you can kind of listen to me talk. I've got to make it 2 more minutes, so you can kind of sit here and just kind of
do whatever. It's the point was, I made the point.
All right.
and here we are.
But according to Facebook, for me to make this video, I've got to make it this long, or YouTube, whatever it was.
Right, for it to be monetizable. Yeah, Facebook does some shit too. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, that's that part I know for sure. But I don't know. I talk about all the time. I like Crystal and Sagar. I mean, hell, I like. I don't listen to it as much as I used to, but the NPR podcast.
Like? Which one?
Their news break. I don't remember what it's called. Like if you listen to regular NPR, like they have their little like bumper, like 2-3 minute little like here's a quick.
Yeah, they do every top of every hour.
Here's a quick bite thing.
Right.
Well, they release that exactly as it comes on the radio as a podcast, which is really annoying because they usually it's usually like they do like an 8, 9, 10. It's the same one. Then 10, 11, 12 is the same one. So they only do like 4 different throughout the day. Unless something happens, they just repeat the same one for a couple hours. Then
a little 2 or 3 minute thing, or the actual like.
It's like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not super long.
Yeah, they put on I think it's pretty much the top of every hour.
Right, but they'll
play that 3 or 4 minutes.
Right, but it's the same one for most of the day.
Yeah.
And they only have like 2 or 3 different ones throughout the day.
Yeah.
If something breaks or something new happens or an update happens, they'll update it. But
right.
For the most part, it's just that. And so like it ended up being like 3 of them a day on the podcast version of it. And so it was really hard to keep up with because every time I would upload into my podcast player, it would be, hey, new recent stories. Episode, and it would be the same stories. Yeah. Or it'd be the minor variation.
Or they added one story and took one
the
out.
minor variation of the same block that they did later in the day. And it's like, okay, like I like this for the quick snippets about this, that, and the others, but at the same time, I can't, I can't keep up with it because it's like repeating. But I did like that one, and I haven't listened to Ben Shapiro in a long time. I just kind of phased out of listening to Ben.
No, I mean, I've mentioned it before. Like with the media, I don't know if it's because there's so much, of like ad algorithms that these stations know, like kind of what they need to talk about. Are they giving us stories that they think that we want to hear, or are they truly giving us news stories?
Yeah, that's another part too, for sure.
Is it giving us stuff to make us be interested, or is it trying to give us stuff because they think that's what's going to get them the most viewership and most people that continue to keep coming back?
Because they were talking about that on Crystal and Sagar with the Chris Cuomo situation at CNN, and so like I guess CNN has a show that is their news critic show, so it's their anchors that are talking about the different news that's going on and whether this group and this story was run correctly by this thing or whatever. So there's a segment on that show where they're talking about Chris Cuomo, who is an anchor on their network, and how maybe it was Cuomo's. That's what it was. It was Cuomo's like half apology after the announcement came out that he's basically been suspended from the network for the time being. Was basically it's like we were just trying to do what the customers wanted, kind of thing. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. And again, like you said, is it like, well, we're trying to give the news that our listeners want to hear or our viewers want to see, or are we reporting the news and the viewers see what the news is? And I think you're right. That's another major part of media issues is it's bad enough that you have major networks that'll run the same story and they're completely different depending on which network runs it. The viewpoint shifts so widely between 2 different groups. Right. But then one group won't carry it because won't even talk about it because it's not good for their image or their team or whatever the fuck it is, whatever reason they don't cover a story or they cover a story in depth because it's whatever. Like I think that's a major problem. I don't think it's fixable though. I think the solution is mini media. I wonder
what percentage of, if it's changed in the past, 50 to 100 years with newspapers, magazines, whatever.
I don't think so. I think
a percentage of their revenue is actually from subscriptions versus revenue with advertising.
Well, they were talking about that.
How much are they now more dependent upon?
Well, they were talking about that. They talked about that in Crystal and Sagar as far as like CNN and cable news goes. Apparently, most of their revenue is from cable packages, not from their advertisers. The majority of their income comes from you buy your Comcast and you get CNN as a channel.
Right.
And the cut that the parent, because I think CNN's owned by Disney.
I don't know.
maybe MSNBC. I don't remember who it was. They were talking about that.
Ted Turner not the owner anymore?
No, he ran off to North Dakota and said, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah, I don't know.
One of the Dakotas. But
we should just make it one Dakota.
That'd be fair. Make it one Dakota, and then we can have DC as a state. We keep 50. Win, win, win. And actually, the Dakotas together probably have less population than DC as a state would.
Possibly. I don't know.
We could look it up. But, yeah, I think apparently that's an interesting thing that they've been talking about on Crystal and Soccer, too. Is like, so, I think it's MSNBC and not CNN. Whichever one Disney owns. Apparently, no, it's definitely CNN because
I think it's NBC Universal is the new conglomeration.
Yeah, but it's CNN is under the Disney banner. One of the top shareholders in Disney was talking about that they're going to make some significant changes to CNN and move it back towards journalism. Like that was like one of his things he said. And so and apparently he was in New York when a bunch of the shit came out about Chris Cuomo's involvement with his brother's cover up and all the bullshit about his accusers thing that was going on.
Based on apparently he was giving him advice for basically PR advice.
Well, no, apparently like the other part I heard too was that he was not only doing that, but he was also working with some of his sources that he used for CNN to get information on some of these different accusers. So, like, actually going out and, like, for lack of a better word, tampering with witnesses, or at least trying to get information on witnesses to...
Just trying to bury the stories.
Not bury the stories, but trying to get information on these witnesses to be able to maybe blackmail, or maybe blackmail is maybe a strong word, but at least intimidate or kind of smear them as, well, yeah, she accused him of this, but she also, did coke on the side, right? Like that kind of shit.
Right.
And so, anyway, the rumor at least is that if this new shareholder from Disney didn't happen to be in meetings with Zucker, I think his name is, that runs CNN currently. If he hadn't actually been in meetings when this story broke about Chris Cuomo's involvement with his brother's case or whatever, that they don't think Chris Cuomo would even gotten suspended because Zucker and Cuomo are good buddies and they didn't want to. He didn't. Like he thinks that they think that the only reason that the result we saw happen was because this third party happened to be there, i.e. one of the new major money guys in the company.
It's possible.
I don't know. I mean, it's above my pay grade, obviously. But
if he's a big enough contributor, he has a sway with the board or whatever.
Yeah.
If he holds majority shares, whatever. He has.
And so, that Cuomo, like both sides of that Cuomo story.
I'm so rich. He's like, I'll buy the rest of you assholes out and I'll make this my own company.
Right. I'm the new Ted Turner, motherfucker.
I am the board of director.
Yeah. But yeah, that Cuomo story just seems to get worse. Like both of the brothers' plays different stuff going on. Just seems to get worse and worse as time goes on.
Yeah.
So we haven't got to talk in a while. So we had the Rittenhouse verdict came out.
Yep.
The Arbery verdict came out. Mm-hmm. I was very excited and pleased with both of those. I think both of those came out correctly.
Wow.
No.
We already talked about the Rittenhouse. Like I said, I don't know enough. From my viewpoint, I think he should have gotten charged with something. But
with something? That dude's a dick.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Please don't put words in my mouth.
I mean, okay, so for the sake of conversation, we can go more abstractly. We don't have to be specific like that. Do you feel like if you should go to jail for shooting somebody in self-defense? Like, no matter what, you should go to jail for shooting somebody regardless of your reason? Motive has nothing to do with it.
Regardless of reason? So I didn't have a reason to shoot the person?
No, I'm saying regardless whether it's I shot him because he looked at me funny and he's ugly, or I shot him because he was coming at me with a knife or other weapon, or I shot him because he was fucking my girlfriend. Does it matter? You should go to jail either way, or for any of those options?
No, I think it would have to be a justifiable and of fear of life of actually saving your own life.
Okay.
You can't just be like, oh, well, I was mad at the guy.
I mean, I agree with you. I think, but that's
looked at me funny. Definitely no.
Right. And I'm not trying to advocate that none of those should.
Right.
If nothing else, I'm advocating that those three things are different things and should be treated differently. I think, shooting you because you're ugly versus shooting you because you're fucking my girlfriend versus shooting you because you're trying to kill me should be treated. The differences in why I shot you should be treated differently in court. And so, the question is, how do we prove the Rittenhouse?
That's the whole kind of gray area with the judicial system, in my opinion, because it all comes down to just kind of proving your mindset at that time of, with the self-defense thing is having to prove that.
I thought it was funny that
you feel for your life, and that's the only thing you really have to convey.
It's
not really proving it, but from you're having to convey that from your viewpoint.
Right, but I think both these cases, the Rittenhouse case and the Arbery case, display that very clearly. Because you have I don't know the people's names that are now in jail and deserve to be in jail in the Arbery case, but the son who had the shotgun that shot first.
Yeah, it was like a father-son, and then
some other dude taking video. The son who shot first was arguing self-defense, that Arbery attacked him, and that's why he shot him. Arbery attacked you because you were detaining him on the street. You don't get to claim self-defense when you are kidnapping somebody at this point, essentially. Right. Where Rittenhouse's argument was, I was in a public place and I was attacked with a skateboard. There was somebody that had a gun that raised a gun to me, XYZ, and the other kind of, I don't remember all the specifics or whatever. Right. But there's a specific difference in the argument of self-defense in both of these cases. Because the one doesn't get to claim self-defense because they instigated the situation. And so that's the question, I think, in the Rittenhouse case. Did Rittenhouse instigate the situation so that he could then claim self-defense? But I think the specific difference is that the Rittenhouse one wasn't an individual intent. It wasn't he went there with one person in mind. Where the Arbery case, those guys went there with one person in mind to interact with and then defend themselves from by shooting them. And so, I don't like the argument that he had no business being there, he had no right to be there kind of thing. It's a public street in a city in the United States of America. He had every right to be there. Maybe it was a poor life decision to be there, but legally speaking, you can't say he had no right to be there. I have a right to be there. I could go right now to Kenosha and walk down the street, right?
Yeah, so you have the right to be there.
Okay. And it's the state of Wisconsin. You can open carry a rifle. That's legal in the state of Wisconsin. So that part, that's some of the little tidbits of the commenting on it is what I don't like. That's why I bring that specific up. But again, to me personally, I feel like you're a little bit more hesitant on the Rittenhouse case, but I think both of those cases came out correctly. I think the system worked the way it should have. And if we want to play racism and argument, we had a white kid in Wisconsin not go to jail, and a white dude in Georgia go to jail. So if you're going to go on the whole, which section of the country is more racist, Wisconsin or Georgia, I would assume that the argument would be Georgia, but they put the white guy in jail where Wisconsin did. But that's a joke and aside anyway. It's me being ridiculous. I apologize.
I'm trying to remember how much time was in between Arbery's actual death until...
That was a weird one.
That was never, the local never filed any charges. That ended up having to be the TB or the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, that I think was one initially after the video got leaked of what happened. Right. Then everyone was like, wait, what the fuck happened 9 months ago? And,
right. And I think
nobody's been arrested over this?
I think that was a particularly... to me...
And it was 2 days after that happened that
right,
they were
then the
arrested.
shit started rolling. And I agree that that's a problem. But to me, I think that was I would hope, at least, that was a very small window of coincidence that made that happen. Because again, because I was reading Betty Bean, who I like to fight with on Facebook all the time, she shared an article about, the real tragedy of the Arbery case is that it almost didn't happen. And it's okay, that's a good point. And so I was reading through it, and they were talking about it. And it's they go through and they break it down, and apparently one of the DAs or prosecutors in that county has actually gotten charges now too for not bringing charges and some other stuff. So really? So the system is retroactively coming back and trying to fix it. But I think realistically, that case was there was a very specific set of circumstances that helped to push some of that along. It's not okay, but I think Yeah, one of the parties involved is an ex-cop locally. And so you have this weird situation where all these DAs know the guy. All these prosecutors locally know the guy. And it's like, well, what do we do here? There's a conflict of interest issue. Because I know we talked about that early on in it. And that I know like the first two DAs, I think the second one is the one that got charges currently.
Yeah, there was somebody that stepped aside and they brought in another.
Right, because
DA.
but one of them sat on it for a while before they recused themselves. And that was one of the weird isms of it as well. And so I agree that part of that case is concerning. But I'm curious how common that is. And it could be super common, and I just am not aware of it.
I mean, I'd say in some cases, they don't have they have assumptions that, like, hey, it may have been this person, but we have no evidence, no proof to go on to where if we charge this guy, we can't hold him because you can't hold somebody unless you're actually charging them with something.
Right. Well, not even that, though. I just think it's that. I think the small town issue of everybody knows all the players involved, and especially because he was an ex-cop. I think if you took the ex-cop out of that,
it's possible. Yeah.
I think that part changes that story a ton because it takes any sort of impropriety conversation from the prosecution side of it going, well, I'm not sure if we should, there's no, well, we worked in the past together, so. I think that's the biggest issue that actually came into play there. The narrative that it was a racial thing, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I just feel like it's more a blue line thing than it is a black and white thing. Because I feel like if Dad wasn't an ex-cop locally, I don't think the same drag ass happened.
It's possible, yeah.
But again, I don't know. I have no proof of that. That's just how that's how it feels to me reading about it and paying attention to it. And so then there's the Maxwell case right now that nobody cares about, so we don't need to talk about that one. Just presidents and
that was another thing that I read today. Apparently, there's some with the things that didn't happen this week. Apparently, there was some kind of thing on social media that gave a phone number, and it is like a real phone number that I guess you can call, and there's like a code that you put in to listen to a trial, but apparently it was like this number that you can call. If you put in this code, you can listen to testimony in the Maxwell case.
And it is a real case, but it's not the Maxwell case?
Yeah, it wasn't tied to that case. They said apparently, because I guess the AP said they called the number and put in like some 8-digit code or whatever, and it just says that code's not valid.
Oh.
But apparently it was going around and like, hey, if you want to hear testimony of this, call.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the interesting things, too. Though. It's like we had the Rittenhouse case was all but like fucking primetime television. Didn't hear much at all about the Aubrey. Like we heard about the Aubrey case, but we didn't see much of it.
Yeah.
And this Ghislaine Maxwell case.
I mean, outside of like court TV, but yeah.
Right. This Ghislaine Maxwell case just seems to be at best a little bit of post. Like I don't know. Neil.
Matt, I think with the prosecution, they've still been trying to build the case. Because it is such a high-profile case, and there are big people involved in it. So I think there has been that of trying to collect and probably trying to bargain and negotiate with people for testimony. If like, hey, if you testify, we'll give you immunity on this charge and this charge. Because there's a lot of weird shit that's come out of this case. Starting with Epstein dying in jail.
Well, I mean, the weird part about the Maxwell case is it's a 90 or it's a both of the specific charges against her currently are pre-Epstein's Florida conviction. So, like, it doesn't have the teeth of even if she does get busted for all this kind of stuff. The hope is that she pleads out and spills her guts, metaphorically, not physically.
I think her defense is she hadn't had much involved in it, and apparently some of the pilot's testimony was like, no, like she's
all in that true.
Well, yeah, she was Epstein's, right-hand person.
Yeah.
And she can't say that she had nothing to do with it.
Right, groom.
Oh, yeah, she dated Epstein back in the day, but she had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and the defense's argument is that your guys are putting Epstein on trial. She's a surrogate for Epstein since Epstein's dead,
right.
Which is a good strategy.
What do they call it? A de facto trial or whatever?
Yeah.
Or in absentia trial of them.
Yeah, and so, I don't know. I mean, it's a bummer that I just like, I don't know. I find it fascinating and like, it's weird. It's just weird. Like that's the bottom line of it.
It's crazy that fucked up shit goes on.
Yes. But not only that fucked up shit goes on, but we're talking, English royalty, multiple presidents, richest man in America, at least was at the time, maybe not anymore, but one of the richest men in America, one of the most influential men in America to this day, especially right now with all the pandemic stuff going on. I mean, Bill Gates is, as far as, again, we talked about this a while ago, if I heard correctly, Bill Gates is now the largest landowner in the United States. Individual landowner in the United States. He's been buying up farms and ranches. That has nothing to do with what I was getting. The point I was getting to, I just remember that little factoid and want to throw it out there again.
There are a lot of foreign nationals
that own a lot of land in the United States. So
right.
yes, but but for Bill Gates and who he is, and that weird ass interview he did a couple weeks ago, where they talked about his relationship with Epstein a little bit. Being on that list of people in this Epstein conversation is just weird. Because, I mean, especially with that interview that he did a couple weeks ago. Did you see any of that? Did you hear about it?
No.
Like, they were talking about it. It's like, he kind of gave this weird, like, because it was all post his conviction in Florida. Like, it was known in the circles that he had been convicted of whatever the shit was, specifically child sex trafficking, whatever. And it's like, well, why would you continue to have a relationship with him? Bill Gates' answer is, he had access to money. He was trying to raise money for his foundations and whatever. Bill Gates, at the time, richest man in the world, well, maybe at least richest publicly in the world. You got those Emirate guys that have money that we can't even understand, needs the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein for money. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Really?
I mean, you have lots of rich investors that don't want to put all their money into something.
Right, but...
I mean, Bill Gates has also been literally the number one world philanthropist. I'm not trying to defend him.
Right.
But I'm saying he's also...
I agree.
He's put up.
But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't know, I just feel like, if you are a top-level philanthropist as such...
I mean, the more people you can get involved, because obviously Epstein has friends. It's like, well, I can get this guy, maybe I can get him to talk to his other friends as well.
I don't know. That just feels hanky to me that you wouldn't say, you know what? I'm Bill fucking Gates. I can go and knock on any door in the fucking world. I can make a phone call, or I can say to my assistant, find me X. I want to talk to X, and it could be anybody on the planet. You're Bill Gates.
Maybe.
I don't know.
What kind of circles he runs in.
I'm pretty sure that if Bill Gates wanted to, he could get anybody in the world on the phone. If he wanted to talk to Putin right now, he could call Putin right now. And Putin would take that call. Maybe not right now because Putin's sleeping or Gates is sleeping, whatever the time it is. Politely. Like, not in the middle of the night or whatever. Not like they'd wake up in an emergency. But if Bill Gates' office calls and says, hey, Putin, Bill Gates would like to set up a time to talk to you. Can we put that in the schedule? Putin's going to say yes.
That's one thing I've read a couple stories on, that some people think that Putin could be the richest person in the world. And there's basically these people that have, I guess, quote-unquote, dark money, that
right,
undisclosed money, that they're actually the really... But on paper, they're not the richest person in the world.
Right, but they own half of the third largest country in the planet or whatever.
Right.
But my point being with all that is that Bill Gates doesn't need an Epstein character to get him in touch with people. He has the means and capability to do that on his own. So if he needs to go out there and meet more rich-ass people to help raise money for whatever he wants to do it, he doesn't need an Epstein character to do so. That might be the logical, easiest way because Epstein's known for running in the circles with these people. I get it. Yeah. But if you're supposed to be the, Uncle Bill that's all nice and sweet and everybody loves you and you're the great guy because you give all your money away and you're trying to help the world get better and blah, 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 I would think it's in your... just for the sake of image, it's in your best interest to avoid a guy like Epstein. And it's not a requirement for you to succeed in your goals. Except apparently Epstein knew a guy that was going to get him a Nobel Prize, but that's a separate conspiracy theory I've heard about. Apparently, one of Epstein's buddies was somebody on the Nobel Committee, which rumor has it Bill Gates wants a Nobel Prize. Why not?
No.
When you have all the money, what do you want? You want cool things that keep your name on them forever. He fucked up and called it Microsoft instead of Bill Gates Software.
It says Microsoft. Sounds so small.
Right.
It's not a big company. You don't call something micro if it's a big company.
Right. But nobody knows who Bill Gates is. They just know who Microsoft is. Yeah. They didn't know who me is. Back to local things. I don't know what else is going on locally. Like this, we got the city parade was tonight.
I did see a story that Sharm Allen and Mayor Jacobs, I think they're starting a committee or starting some kind of commission to try to look into and fight domestic abuse. I think they started some kind of domestic abuse
I think
commission.
October was like Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, or maybe November, one of those two.
Was it?
There was some awareness thing.
That's other. I think that I saw it mentioned on. I've seen it mentioned on other things. I don't know if it's just a popular story that's been going around, but that most of the officer-involved shootings are officers responding to
domestics.
Domestics, yeah,
makes sense. Other local news. Let me see if I can find it real quick. One of the Sessions judges that's on this ballot coming up is retiring at the end of the year. So County Commission is going to appoint a interim. And so apparently Sharm Allen's office has a rule that she will not employ you as a prosecutor if you are seeking office. I think that makes sense. If you're seeking office as a judge, you're not allowed to be a prosecutor for her. But apparently, two of her current prosecutors are top of the list of people who want to replace this person and who have put their names in for the appointment. So once they get the appointment, they automatically quit their job at the DA's office. I'm sorry. Let me read it again. The rule in the policy for Sharm's policy is staff can run for judicial positions if there is no incumbent. And so by whomever gets this appointment will become the incumbent. And so there's two, Judd Davis and Sarah, I apologize for the Sarah fans out there, I don't know Sarah's last name, are both vying for this position. And they both want this appointment. And they're both in the prosecutor's office right now. And so if Judd gets it appointed to him, but Sarah wants to run against him, she has to quit her job. So it's kind of a weird dynamic going on in there.
Yeah.
In which, as I read it through, it's like, oh, you're on Team Sarah. I get it. Sarah's a Democrat.
That's your automatic assumption?
Well, I mean, I was correct. Yeah. There's more to what he said to me before I made that leap, but yes. And so it's a weird little shifter. But regardless of the specifics of that, I find that a very interesting little politics move by whomever is quitting. It's literally... you were coming up to the end of the end of your term, and you're retiring early, and it's a move to try to keep that judge's seat, but presumably with a Republican. I'm assuming, because the assumption is Judd Davis is going to get the appointment because the Republican County Commission is going to appoint him to it, and it's easier for an incumbent than a challenger to take a seat.
True.
And so whoever not to mention now it's even easier because it might be that this Sarah character doesn't run against him because she doesn't want to quit her job to do so because he automatically becomes an incumbent. And so essentially what it is, it's a little move that's being played is he's retiring early. So it's the same thing that a lot of people asked for RBG to do. They wanted her to quit while Obama was still in office so that Obama could replace her instead of Trump or whoever replaced Obama. So it's the same kind of move as they're trying to get this judge is quitting early so that his team's commission can appoint his replacement, and then that replacement who was appointed is more likely to keep the seat because they're now an incumbent. It's kind of gross. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution to that would be other than to say you can't quit. But that doesn't seem very legit to me either.
I mean, it seems like politics just kind of worms its way into any kind of facet of life nowadays.
I don't think it's a nowadays thing. I think this is an old practice that's been done for decades.
I think it's as much as it has been in the past, but I mean, it's always been to an extent, yes.
I don't know.
You've got people getting fired over their political leanings.
I think that's a problem. That's a huge problem, depending on what the job is. I think there are places where that makes sense.
Yeah.
But for 99% of jobs, no, it doesn't make sense. You and I can work together. I think that's the real problem we have as a nation right now, is that we are being trained, for lack of a better word, that we can't. You and I don't agree. Like, I mean, again, I go back to like the beginnings of the show. Like, realistically, this show, when we started really talking about paying more attention to local politics and politics in general, as we talked about it, like, what intrigued me most about it is, between the four of us, we have a pretty wide range of political feelings between the four of us. And we're all very good friends, I think. This is when you say, yeah, we're all good friends.
Yeah, we're all
okay. Thank you.
We're all great friends.
You had me question whether I was wrong. All right, but I mean, I think we're all good friends. We have very different political leanings, and I think that's reality. I think that's the reality in the real world. I think there's plenty of people out there that work next to each other in whatever job they have. Go to the office, go to whatever they do all day, and hang out and have a really great time. Go to the bar, go do social things and whatever, and have different people that they interact with and are perfectly okay with. But if you got down to the brass tacks of their political feelings, they might be completely opposite, but they can get along just fine. And I think what we're being taught by the media and by the world as it's turning right now is that they're not fine anymore. The other isn't fine anymore. They're not good enough to be near you. They're the pure evil. You're the good. Whichever side, doesn't matter. And so we're trying to be.
Yeah, I mean, even the 2016 election, the 2020 election, literally started splitting families up.
Yeah,
where families just stop talking because of their political leanings.
See, but I don't think those political leanings changed. I think the way we've been taught to deal with those political leanings is what's changed.
Possibly.
And that it's no longer okay that you disagree with me about qualified immunity. It's not okay. You are a bad person because you have a different view on qualified immunity than I did. And that's what I think we're being taught. I think realistically, there are people that have known each other and been friends with each other for decades that have had these different feelings on different topics. And it wasn't part of their conversation, or even if it was like, whatever, it's a good dude, it's fine. But I think we were being taught that that's not okay anymore. And I think that's what's wrong with the world we're living in right now, is that we're being told that that's not okay anymore. That there's an enemy system to it now, instead of it just being like, you know what? I don't agree with you on that. Let's talk about something different.
Yeah, we focus on a lot of the differences versus how much we are more alike and in agreement of things.
Almost. I made the joke this time.
Ha 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 ha.
But I think that's the reality of what's going on right now. I think it's and I think it's intentional. I think it's intentional by the parties that they want to divide it further, because the further it's divided, the more important the two-party system is, and that solidifies their existence, because they know they're not going to eliminate the other. They're never going to eliminate the other. The other is a necessity for them. It's a yin and yang, for lack of a better word. We have to have the other to fight against. So we can't kill them. We just have to keep them as far over there as we can, and then we can go as far over here as we want to.
We got to keep them out of power to where they can't make decisions.
Right, but we need them in power, because once they get in power... I mean, there's an article that Matt shared with me the other day that is basically that the Republicans are getting ahead of themselves on this abortion stuff that they're pushing, because they're actually doing what they promised, of trying to ban abortion in different ways. Well, if you're a Republican, what do you run on if you don't have the abortion issue anymore? Like, that's one of those election issues, which goes into the question of, are we electing people to do? But that's a separate thing. But like, there are a number of issues that both parties have, and what it's become for the Democrats recently is free college, college debt forgiveness, Medicare for all. Those are now becoming the left side topics, which we're going to do this for you, and we're going to do this for you, we're going to do this for you, and they don't, because they know if they do, they don't get elected again. They need to run on it. They need to find an excuse why it's the other team's fault that they didn't do what they promised, and that's why you're going to elect him again, because next time I'll be able to get it done, because that guy's not going to be here anymore.
No, I saw an interview earlier today. It was a reporter that had interviewed somebody on like the Republican National Election Committee or whatever, and they were saying, the
executive committee probably is the term.
Executive, whatever. But he was, basically saying, he's like, I wish they wouldn't, I'm not, promoting them to focus on abortion, like trying to get them to focus on like other issues, especially in some swing states. They're like, we don't want them out there campaigning on, abortion this, abortion that, and focusing on abortion as their number one topic. Because in swing states, that's not going to get them elected.
Right.
If they want to find those middle of the road,
right, you want to find the issues
undecided voters, that's not what you want to. That's not what people are going to pick you on.
Yeah.
Traditionally GOP back state, you may be able to campaign more on that, but
right. Well, because a more
as
a more
tight as a lot of the races are in the swing states,
right? Because the more red state you get, the further of a red state you get, you're not running to actually ban abortion. You're running to say that they're going to have people aborting their kids on the street corner. That's how you run that. That's how you can run that in the more red states, or the inverse being the blue states. When you're a blue candidate in a blue state, you say that Republican guy's going to come in here and he's not going to let you have abortions anymore. Yeah. But you never run. But the goal is never to actually do anything about it. The goal is that this is the issue that I know you come out and vote for. So what happens when I do?
Is that what they campaign on? Just campaign to make promises that they already know they're not going to fulfill?
Well, they can't fulfill, because if they do, they can't win again. That's the point. That's the issue to me, is that they don't.
Is that what they've been making promises for decades and decades? Like, one of these days we're gonna come to fruition on one of these.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't think it's promises per se, but I think it's one of those things that that's the big major, the big single issues for a lot of people. Those single issue voters out there, those big single issue ones, are the ones that are never going to get done. Because it's no good for you to get it done, because then you won't win again. You just figure out a way to blame it on the other team and why it didn't get done. Tennessee wants to change abortion law. They're going to blame it on federal government coming in and making it an issue. It's Biden's fault that we can't change that abortion law like I promised you I would when I ran.
But what good does that do to blame? Does that increase? Do you think that increases your chances for the next election cycle?
Because you can run on it again.
You just lost, and you're putting excuses. Do you make excuses for 2 years?
But you get to run on that thing again. That super hot button thing, abortion being an easy one. You get to run on abortion again. Because when I go out and campaign as a Republican in the state of Tennessee, I'm not going to say I'm pro-choice. I can't say I'm pro-choice, or I don't get my R next to my name. But if I get asked, and it's obligated with that R that I am anti-abortion.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. Because I mean, it's obligated both ways. There's a Democrat from Memphis, West Tennessee area, who got kicked out of the party a year or so ago, because he started backing off of being pro-choice publicly. He's a West Tennessee Democrat that was elected as a Democrat that got kicked out of the party because he's like, I'm not sure that abortion's the right thing to do. Got kicked out of the party for it. The whip came in and did the whip job.
There's GOP senators that support pro-choice.
I mean, it depends on the state.
National.
It depends on the state they're from.
Yeah, I guess. Because
just like you said, in Ohio, it's a different conversation than it is in a Tennessee or a Texas or something like that.
Sure.
But my point is, again, and I don't mean to blanket abortion as a universal version of it. I just think it's one of those issues that you don't want to ever actually do something about, because if you ever actually do something about it, then it ruins your chance and or your party's chance of getting reelected, because people don't want to. People want to vote because they want you to do something. What are you going to do next if you get this big major thing done? But you're always going to run on the big major thing, because that's the thing that gets people activated. Which is why it's impossible to be a libertarian, because I don't want anything done.
How do we get people to focus on actual issues versus hot button issues?
Normal people or candidates?
Normal people.
I mean,
because that's the metrics that campaign officials are looking at.
Right. I mean, I think first step one.
What's going to get people like, not really like instilling fear, but
no. Step one is we have a real conversation, a real public conversation, like we're having right now, where we help inform people to the idea that this is the same as when you're watching the Olympics, and they have that great story about that kid who was born into a poor family and had leukemia and all this different stuff, with that great story that gets you really emotionally invested in that kid, so that when you go out there and watch him compete, you're like, that kid's awesome. He went through all that stuff. Now, that's a real story, but that NBC, as they're showing it, is pulling you in to get you emotionally invested into that person so that you watch and continue to watch. And so I don't think people think about politics doing the same thing, but they absolutely do. These campaign people that you're talking about, they absolutely do. I mean, Matt Shears openly talks about it. They have all sorts of data. The DNC data that's available to him as the chair of the local party is amazing, or awful, whichever way you want to look at it. I tend to lean awful, but the amount of information that he has on you as a individual, not you as a person in the broad sense of it, but you as who you are, where you live, XYZ. They have a lot of data on you and how to get you to come out and vote for their team, on whether it's worth their money to try to get you to come out and vote for their players.
True.
They have all that data. And so I think step one would be making that a public known. When you are listening to a campaign, either right out of the candidate's mouth, or people that are speaking on their behalf, people that are members of the party, it is important that you know that they are playing just like watching, soap operas. They're trying to hook you on things that they think that you are hookable to. And you need to be aware of what you're hookable to. And then I think one of the most important things, like I jokingly said to Chris earlier, I would love to go find somebody that's sat in each one of these seats that has zero ambition to get the seat again, and sit down and talk about what the job is. I think that's the other part too, because the president of the United States is a great example. Joe Biden does everything, or does nothing, or something. What does he actually do? Like, what does the president's job actually do? What is the president supposed to do by law? Like, how much domestic and foreign involvement is the president supposed to have? Is the president allowed to just flat out say, "Yeah, this is no longer happening anymore. I wrote this executive order"? We don't understand that as a populace, if they're allowed to do that kind of stuff. It goes like the simple one is these judges. Like, what factors do I use to choose a judge for a local court?
Right.
So I think that's another step to look for. So it's like, again, it's like these people that are going to run for these judge positions, they know they have the machine. They're going to have the machine behind them, whether it's the GOP or the Democratic machine behind them that has this data that we're talking about. And they're going to play that. Like, I mean, again, Chris Davis said it perfectly. They're electing you on a picture, on your slogan, on your yard sign. Nowhere in that list given is what you're going to do with the job. What you can do with the job. Do you actually understand what the job is? Now, I would hope that a lawyer would know what a judge does, because the lawyer has to deal with the judge in their current job, and so they're just switching seats. But I mean, again, we've talked about this. Like, I don't know what a county commissioner does. I still don't know what they do. A lot of it's land use stuff. But, we've got this $80-something million baseball stadium that's coming down the pipe that our commissioners are voting on. That was not a topic of conversation before they were elected. Did anybody around know that was something that they could do? That was part of their job? That they were going to be voting on spending $100 million, give or take, of local money over the next 30 years on a private business's income process?
I would like to think there's a decent bit of the populace that would assume that is within their wheelhouse of powers.
I mean, obviously it is, because it's happening, but is that something that people were thinking about?
Outside of the city or county commission, who else would the general populace think would have that decision?
I mean, the state obviously had part of it. We talked about when you saw the mayor. And
the state is whom?
The state of Tennessee.
No, the state, like, as whom? Like the governor of the state, or
you were talking about how when you saw Mamontoff and Mayor Jacobs in the
asking the state for money.
Right.
That's asking for money. That's not asking for them to wield their stately hammer down upon Knoxville and say, "Bear, you're getting a stadium. You get a TV. You get a TV."
It kind of is them doing that. Maybe it's bam, you get a part of a stadium because you got to pay for the rest. But I mean, again, I agree. But I'm just saying, like, is this something that the average person in Knoxville thinks about when they're electing somebody? again, going back to the city races, the Eric Wader and the not officially Republicans that were running against the incumbents, were running on a platform of, if you put these incumbents back in, they're going to raise taxes. Because apparently that's an issue that Wader and that team thought was something that city voters cared enough about that they might want to vote against. But the question being, does the average Tennessee or city of Knoxville resident, do they know who and how taxes are controlled locally? Do you?
Hell no.
Like realistically, do you know how how are your taxes set? I mean, we already joked about this because you rent and you don't even think about your property tax.
Right.
What percentage of Knoxvillians do you think rent and don't, and as opposed to own? I would say it's pretty high. I would guess.
I would say at least maybe 1 out of 8.
Oh, I would guess it's over
1 out
a third.
Of 4?
I would say it's a third. I would say it's a third to half. Because you got to think of the actual homes that are in the city of Knoxville. There's a good number.
They're still rental properties.
But I'd say a good number of those are rental properties. And then how many apartment complexes? And just mathematically, one apartment complex has got 100 units in it. And they're all rentals. So if you have a neighborhood of 100 houses and they're half rentals, that's 50-50. But you have an apartment complex of 100, they're all rentals, so now it's 150 rentals and 50 home owners. So you're at 25% ownership at that point. So again, but point being, who cares about property taxes in the city? Who that lives in the city actually understands who has the power to control that? Right. Better yet, average city resident knows actually where their tax dollar directly goes. Like city property tax. Okay, it says city property tax, but who takes that money from you?
Property assessor.
The city of Knoxville, I guess. I would hope that people would think the city of Knoxville because the bill is going to come to the city of Knoxville. Again, the renters aren't going to know that because they don't see that bill.
All right.
Where does your tax money go? Just that question alone. Where does your tax money go? I would bet you that a large percentage of people, if we walked down the street and just started asking that question, a large number of people would say IRS.
Think so?
Yeah, I would say even if you're like sales tax when you go to the grocery store or when you go into the gas station and buy a pack of gum for 99 cents, you pay $1.08. Where does that 8-9 cents in taxes go? IRS. I bet you. Right here in Knoxville, we could walk around and get, I would say, more than half the people are going to say IRS or DC or Washington or something like that, something federally.
I'd say there's a decent number of people, quote unquote, in the know that couldn't say fully for 100% where exactly all of that money is going.
I wouldn't count myself as in the know.
Right.
I wouldn't count myself as in the know, and I don't know where all that money goes.
Right.
I know that sales tax in the state of Tennessee all goes to the state, but a percentage of that automatically comes back. But not really. I know where there's. For me, I live in the county, so I don't have a city tax. But my county property tax is collected within my mortgage. And then annually, my mortgage company pays my property tax to the county. All of my sales tax.
Admittedly, it is a complicated process of trying to track a single dollar that went from a property owner back to the city, a portion of that going to the state, a portion of that coming back to the state get subdivided up into a general funds, that general funds get split up into Department of Transportation and
and how many pennies and nickels and dimes get shaved off as it goes back and forth is a problem. And why? But to whose end? Like who does it benefit? And I already answered this question with my joke about pennies and dimes getting shaved off. But to whose benefit?
The U.S. Mint?
To whose benefit does this complication lie? Like, who's the benefit? Being so damn complicated that the average person doesn't know where their tax money goes.
People making the decisions of where that money goes.
Yeah. And so why would they clean that up and make it easier for you to understand? Why would they want you to understand that? They don't.
I mean, I would like to think that there's an assumed level of trust that the people in those positions are doing as they should be properly.
Okay, so what is it? Okay, so let's assume I'll run down the rabbit hole on that statement with you for a second.
Yeah.
So that we'll start with there is an institutional trust. The state of Tennessee, Knox County, city of Knoxville, I trust them that they have good intentions with what they're doing. How many times do they fail before I stop trusting them? How many things can they fail on? Because I think Chris Davis and a number of people have referenced this perfectly correctly for me.
I mean, I think a single incident is indication of most likely past incidents and most likely future incidents of that happening.
It is one when it affects you. They're constant because I think that's what happens. Is I think when the one that affects you, it's one time. When it affects you, that's when you start questioning it.
Only when it affects you is the only thing. Is my only pushback.
Right, when it affects you, yes. And
so it doesn't matter if their decisions.
No, because I'm
factored into your neighbor.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
In the sense that that one that affects you it opens up your eyes and you see it happening around you.
Right.
Where you don't bother to pay attention to when it's happening around you until it happens to you, and then you're like, oh, I see where they fucked this thing up over there. Right. I see what they're fucking with that guy over there. Where it was happening already, you just didn't pay attention to it.
Right. And I agree. That's a lot of like the ills of things that happen is people don't think they're happening because they haven't been affected by it.
Right. But that's my point is that even if we start with that level of trust, that one fuck up, I start looking and I start seeing all the other ones. Which means the trust shouldn't have been there in the first place.
I mean, I'd say at least every 2 or 3 weeks, there's a story of the state comptroller, like catching a treasurer of a certain city or whatever, embezzling money or stealing money from funds.
A goddamn comptroller in here already. You are so hard on for comptrollers. Just go get one. There's got to be a county one. There's a state one. We know for sure.
I know there's a state one.
Get the office. Call them up. Be like, get one of
we
their local
almost
investigators.
figured that there is a city or a city
Whatever.
one, but
forget it. Just call the state one up and be like, hey, we'd love to talk to the comptroller on our show. If you can't get me the comptroller, get me one of his investigators for the East Tennessee region or something like that. Just do it. Just email them. They're really.
I thought you said you found an article for the one in East Tennessee. Like all the times I've tried to look for it, it always like basically references the state comptroller.
I don't remember, man.
I mean, I'll admit I've been lazy and haven't reached out to him. But we kept thinking like, I think there's an East Tennessee comptroller or a city or county comptroller. But most of when I go to like the state website and I look up comptroller, it always just kind of goes to the state comptroller, the state comptroller's office. That was where I found was interesting. They had like a small business, and it's basically a part of the state that will help out small businesses with issues that they're having. I think it's more with trying to figure out different tax laws and different legalities of being a business, but they're actually there to help small businesses.
I think it's just one of those. I think it's I don't know, and I guess this is where going back and why I think we are a great example of how people with different political views can get along. So like, to me, I don't like. I was on the board. I was on board. I was like, hey, they're there for a reason, right? Let them do what they're supposed to do. But then something affected me, and I started paying attention. It's like, no, they're fuck ups. They're just general fuck ups. They're people that fuck up too. Why is this special class of people somehow above reproach, and we can't attack them for being fuck ups, and we can't do anything about that. We got to trust them to do and all that stuff. Instead of it's like, why does that I don't know. It's just that's where I get fundamentally different. It's like, you wouldn't trust me to do it. You wouldn't trust somebody else to do it, but we trust that guy because he has the title.
Kids get a free
or girl.
Pass. Are they kids?
They're not kids.
Oh well, then they don't count. They don't get a free pass.
Right, we're talking about adults.
Don't get a free pass.
Yeah, exactly. But they do because they're elected adults.
Yeah, but the only people that get to cheat at the table are the kids.
Not at my table. Well,
you let them get away with it. And you cheat for them too. Don't even.
I know. I let you let them get away with it.
You cheat for them.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what I was careful to say, that we should be able to.
Right.
Not that we should trust them because they're in that position.
But that's what I find fascinating about it, is that we don't like...
That's why I think we should hold them to a higher standards of people that are in that office.
But we have to put forth that effort.
We have instilled that trust in you.
Right, but we have to put forth that effort, and we don't. Like, how do we... let me back up. Who holds them to a better standard?
Federally, you've got the oversight committee that
took away our ability to
holds some of that. And as far as state, you've got, I guess, the comptroller.
Love you.
I mean, there are levels of it, and that's one thing you push back is on, like, the hey. The thing you push back is the the bureaucracy of it, of having that added layers. And I think it's because there has been, I mean...
Right, okay, so who, all right, is the comptroller an elected office?
No idea.
So who, I mean, okay, we'll try both
the random times I've ever voted, I've never
I don't
voted
remember
for a
voting for either,
comptroller.
but for the sake of conversation, let's say they are. Let's go knock on a couple doors in my neighbor's house. Hey, what does the comptroller do? When you're voting for comptroller, what is important to you when you vote for a comptroller?
Most people, if you said the word comptroller, wouldn't know what the hell you were talking.
Exactly.
Like, is that a word?
Right.
You're making something up.
So while the premise of the position makes sense, somebody to oversight that's separate from, to make sure X, Y, Z, totally makes sense. But when the hiring manager, me and you, the public, assuming it's a voted position, don't have a fucking clue what their job is, and we're voting on their wonderful campaign picture and their great signs and their slogan and whatever they go out and tell you that they're going to do with the job, whether that has anything to actually do with the job or not, because we don't know any better. How does that help us? That's assuming it's elected.
I mean, part of it goes back to,
because again, we have to trust that person.
The initial setup of the Constitution itself is set up as checks and balances. With the initial being the checks, because we have someone checking.
Well, the check was the public. The check has always been the public. That's why we elect people constantly, all the time. That's why we have elections all the time.
No, the checks and balances goes into the three parties. The judicial,
right,
executive, and congressional, executive,
legislative,
judicial, legislative, yeah.
Right, which gets into the fun little, like, definitionally by the terms themselves. So you have legislative, which is the ones that write the laws. Executive is the ones that execute the laws in the place. Judicial, the ones that clarify whether or not those laws that have been written are constitutional, and that they're being executed. Executed. Thank you. Executed within the bounds of the Constitution. Still not what's happening, but fine. That's an aside. We're on the specific of this comptroller conversation. Right. It's probably appointed position because I don't remember voting for him. Yeah. So who's appointing him? The governor? How hard are you going to look into the governor's finances in his office if he's the one that gave you the job? And if you're going to go back to the checks and balances of the Supreme Court and stuff like that, the Supreme Court is with at least in the last couple of appointments, is a super politics process. The point of the Supreme Court was to be the one that wasn't politics.
Right. I think I just saw something tonight. There was a Winnipeg poll or whatever. I guess it's a
Winnipeg. Yeah.
It's one of the more major, I guess, national polls that are done. And I want to say it was like 2/3 of Americans that responded to this. They didn't give a what's the word, the p-value of a statistic.
Yeah,
the amount
plus
of people,
or minus percentage, right?
No, the amount of people that were actually interviewed. Like sometimes they're like, well,
2/3 of 7.
Yeah, but 2/3 said that they saw the Supreme Court more as a political kind of thing versus them actually, or they were more concerned with politics versus a third. They thought the Supreme Court was more involved in the actual laws of things,
right,
or legality of laws and whatnot.
I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting one in that again, but
it's a slippery slope to getting into because your decision as a judge can have the public presume, the way you ruled on something, presume your political leanings because you voted on it because of this way or the other.
Well, and I mean,
I think that's why they.
And if you're voting in primaries, you're voting. At least your primary polls are public record,
right?
And so we know if you vote for Republicans as a judge.
True. But generally, they're going back on rule. I mean, when they talk about a judge's track history, they more so look at how they've ruled on certain topics versus they don't necessarily dig into how they voted in years past.
But again, I guess my point is back to the comptroller part of things. It's like it's just another person that we're supposed to trust to do a job in our best interest. And I think the bottom line here, for the majority of people, again, this is me and my altruism argument. I don't want to go all the way back into that thing. But I think the bottom line here is we understand that the human nature is fairly selfish. It's what's in my best interest. And sometimes my best interest lines up with the public best interest. Sometimes those things go together because I want to keep this job or something like that. But at the end of the day,
should we always be in the mindset of automatic distrust and questioning of someone's motives just because they're in a position that has a hint of corruptibility?
Sure. Why wouldn't we? That's how we hold them to account. Because I think that's
to automatically assume that you're in a position that no. I think that viewpoint would put the general populace in a very dark viewpoint on any official, essentially.
Sure. Was that a problem?
Yes.
How's that a problem? You should if you want to go into the public sphere, if you want to go...
Should I go to the mall and just every person I see just automatically distrust? I see them like, I don't know you, fuck you, you're probably evil.
You may or may not do that anyway. I mean, that's the point.
That's a grander view of it, but I mean...
But we're talking about people...
Any elected official or any...
Right, we're talking about elected people that have been put in a position of trust. Right. A position where we are trusting you to spend our money,
right,
and to do things in our best interest. Yeah, we should assume the worst and make them prove that they're right instead of assuming the best and letting us prove them.
I'm not almost in agreement on that.
I mean, it's a little disappointing. Sure, I don't disagree with that, but I mean, how many millions of dollars have been wasted here and there and everywhere? How much has been squandered and absconded with? That's not the word I was looking for, but I'm going with it. By these public officials over time, because we don't know any better and we assume trust.
I agree.
And the comptroller might come in and save our ass.
That's why we have oversight in many of those situations that have.
Right, but again, my point is that oversight is another person that we don't know how they got there. Like, I mean, we literally don't know how the comptroller got there. And why do we trust that person? Because their job is to represent us. Well, isn't the person they're overseeing supposed to represent us too? And protect us and do things for us? Like, this is something like I don't know. I'm not trying to be depressing and looming about everything, but I think the assumption of trust is the problem.
There's a difference between skepticism and automatic distrust.
Okay, maybe skeptic would be a nicer way to say it, but I think that's a minimum starting point.
But I think there's a relatively decent difference between skepticism and distrust. Skeptical means you're not sure. You're right there, right in the middle. You're not saying I completely trust them, but I'm not saying
I'll lean full into distrust.
But to automatically just distrust any elected official just because of track histories of
most elected officials before them have done things that we...
No, not most.
I would bet most, but okay.
No.
How did we get here?
How did we get where?
Wherever you want to, whichever version of here you want to look at. These are the elected officials doing what they do. How do we get from the Constitution as it's written
to where we live in the country? Yes. Is it rampant? No.
Ooh, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that at all.
And what area do you think there is rampant?
I mean, federally it's easy. I'm not going to go federally. Local, it's a little bit harder to get into. It's a little bit hard to follow.
You think there's rampant corruption in federal politics?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, would you guess a percentage, like 60, 70, 80?
I mean, so what, there's 102 people in the Senate, right? Something like that? Right? It's 100. It's 2 per state plus
100 exactly.
No, I thought there was plus. I thought the DC had a rep and
no.
I thought well, the House.
DC has 1 rep. Yeah.
In the House or just not down in the Senate?
Yeah, just in the House.
Okay.
But she has no voting. I mean, she can get up and talk, but
I couldn't remember who had. I couldn't remember who had what in that because I remembered that there was definitely a DC and some weirdness and whatever. Fine. There's 100 exactly. 98, 99. I actually trust Bernie Sanders. I don't like Bernie Sanders, but I trust him when he talks.
Are you being serious?
Yeah. I mean,
so everybody other than Bernie, you just automatically distrust.
I think Bernie's corrupt too. To be fair, but I mean, okay. Let's stick with Bernie because I know this example better than others.
Let's define your definition.
I mean, Bernie Sanders is great. Bernie Sanders is the perfect example. He has never held a job outside of public service his entire life. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he started out as the mayor of Burlington.
Right. And that was at like 40. He'd worked in nonprofits and stuff like that.
It was like late 80s, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, he just after his last failed presidential run bought a $600,000 something house in wherever. Is that not true?
It is true.
Okay.
He also sold a house before he bought that house, like most people do.
Okay. How much was the house he sold?
I don't know.
I mean, so I'm just saying, a public servant buying a $500,000 house. Is that's a salary a public servant should make. What's he make? $200,000 a year as a senator? What's his net worth? Those kind of things. These are the things that I question.
Okay, so you say
he has better health insurance than I do.
Senators make how much? $200,000 a year?
I don't know what they make a year.
So
I think it's like $200,000 a year. He could afford $600,000.
Okay, so he could afford So your automatic distrust that a public official that makes $200,000 a year wouldn't be able to afford a $500,000 house.
He can afford it. He can afford it, but it doesn't line up with his persona. But whatever.
What? How does that not?
How's that not?
People go into much more debt over less and make less money.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's the one that doesn't.
I'd say collective households that probably make $120,000 a year will still get a mortgage and a loan for a $500,000
sure,
house.
That's true. That's fair. I apologize. You're right.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm not like doing crazy
your
math in my head.
Yeah, and it's up in New England and all that kind of shit, so it's expensive property up there.
No, I'm saying it's not. I mean, just a $500,000 house is a $500,000 fucking house. I mean, yeah, the size is going to be bigger, but the actual cost of the house that we're alluding to.
Right, but it's also in Connecticut or New Hampshire or whatever. It's
right, so he himself makes whatever $200,000 a year.
Right,
that's excluding his wife, which I have no fucking clue what the hell she does.
Yeah. Anyway. I don't know. I don't think. I mean, I'd be curious where.
I just thought it was funny you brought that up because I've seen that debunked many a time.
Oh, that's fair. All right, I apologize. I fucked up.
Everyone jumped on he bought a house, but no one mentioned that. Like most people, he sold a house before he bought a new house.
All right, I take it. I accept my poor judgment there on that one. I don't know. What was it?
I agree.
Like his whole thing coming into this Build Back Better / infrastructure.
Biden's Build Back Better.
Right.
I don't think Bernie ever
it was
behind Build Back Better.
Well,
I don't mind the slogan.
What was the other one? It was infrastructure. There's bipartisan infrastructure, which that's the Build Back Better one, and then it was the bigger one, the bigger of the two that Bernie wrote. It's gonna drive me nuts. It's dead in the water.
Infrastructure?
No, infrastructure. The infrastructure is the Build Back Better. Fuck, I don't know.
I know Warren was going after because she was on the. I think her and Bernie both were going after corporate, basically.
Right. My real issue with Bernie is turning around and supporting Hillary and Biden after getting screwed by the party. But that's a party corruption, not a flat government or corruption on his part.
I don't necessarily call that corruption.
I mean, you're distilling your morals and values for what? He's gotten nothing for it.
I mean, backing Biden, he gets someone that was in his party, a former colleague, and also not Trump, but I mean, yeah, he gets to have someone in the executive branch that is within his party.
But he's not in that party. He's tangentially in that party. He's only in that party when he's running for president.
Yeah, I guess he did actually run as the Democratic.
But anyway, but yes, the Senate at large, the House at large. I would fail to articulate, but I would lean most of them are fairly corrupt people. I don't think you get there without being corrupt, because you need the money to do it. Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema.
I guess we'd have to kind of debate, like, it's just that level of production. Are you compromising your values, or is it straight up, you're taking money on the side and et cetera,
right,
and
it comes down to
straight up corruption.
And to back off my original statement, it comes down to how much you matter to. The general makeup of the House that you're working in. Like if you're a Republican right now in the House or in the Senate or the House for that matter, you don't matter. You really don't matter. It's just vote the party line and it doesn't matter.
Why do you think it doesn't matter?
Because you lose because we vote party lines, and so as long as you don't step out, it doesn't matter.
True.
Like, they're not talking about Ted Cruz's voting record right now. We're talking about his burns on a fucking congressional hearing. We don't care about what Ted Cruz is voting on because we know he's voting no to whatever Biden and the Democrats are putting up. So it doesn't matter what he's voting on. It matters his sweet quotes and sick burns, and that's all. That's the only reason he exists right now in the public sphere, because he's in the minority party, who has it's the minority party in the House, the Senate, and doesn't hold the White House. So all they're doing is treading water, waiting for this next midterm election next year, which it's going to flip hard.
I mean, neither has a supermajority.
Do it?
I said neither has a supermajority.
Well, I'm going to say the Republicans are going to have a supermajority short of the White House. I'll put that prediction out now. Come this time next year.
Well, they've already seen. I'm trying to remember. There's one guy. I think he's from Illinois or Indiana. Starts with a K. He's already said that he's not going to run. I think he's a House of Representatives. But he's not running in the next election. There's been a couple more essentially moderate, not probably what most Republicans would call rhinos, that have decided they're not running in the next election. They're not running for a re-election.
Right. They'll be replaced. Especially if they're not going to primary, they'll be replaced by a more Trumpy one.
Possibly.
And that one will probably win.
It's possible.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. National pictures, fucking, it's going to flip hard. I think it's going to flip hard in midterm. I think you're going to have
I think it may flip. I don't think it's going to flip hard.
I think it's going to be significant. I don't think it's going to be a super. I don't know if we have the. I mean, I think.
When was the last time we had a supermajority?
I don't think we have. I don't think it's going to get to a supermajority. That's what I was getting ready to say.
We've always been just a little bit on either side of 50-50.
It's going to be like a 60-40, 65-35 or something like that. I don't know what makes a supermajority anyway. It's going to be enough that I guess 60
for the Senate. You would have to have 60.
I guess it's got to be enough to overturn the filibuster.
Right.
That's when you get the supermajority where the filibuster doesn't matter anymore.
All right. So in the Senate, it would be a 60-40.
So I don't know.
Or 59, whatever, because the
vice president is the
vote.
Is the tiebreak. It's only a tiebreak vote though.
Oh, is that on for tiebreak? Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of, have you heard any of the stories about them trying to figure out how to run anybody but her against whoever the Republican is in the next presidential election?
Say again?
That the conversation is that
We don't. They don't think Biden's going to run again.
I thought I read something that he's already said that he's going to run again.
I mean, assuming like what the conversation that I'd heard about it was that assuming he survives.
Well, no, I heard he's going to die in office, and that was the only reason they elected him, so Kamala could come in and be president.
Yeah. I mean, she was the first female president for a couple days. Technically,
was he under surgery?
Yeah, he was getting his butthole cleaned out or something. Since he shit his pants in front of the Pope or whatever. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. That was just making jokes. Apparently he farted at something and everybody made a big deal out of it. It's like, he's an old man. He farts. Who cares?
Everybody farts.
My dad farts all the time. I fart all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I fart all the time in public spaces and I go...
I try to at least like look around for a second before...
Right. It's like, who the fuck did that? Jesus Christ. But yeah, anyway, I need to figure out a plan for 2022 for the show. Because I need to figure out how to do a lot of interviews in not a lot amount of time. Like, we really, like, I think I need to, once we start getting names in, I think I'm going to have to assign you guys some scheduling. You don't have to do the interviews. I'll do the interviews. But I'm going to figure out some interview windows, and I'm going to assign you guys getting in with different campaigns and different, you're going to get all these judges. And you got to get me all these judges, and you got to figure out how to work them in.
I was thinking one way to do it is if you had a set 10-question thing that you send to...
I thought about doing that for the city races, and I think that'd be a good thing to do, but...
Your response has to be less than 2 minutes or whatever.
Right.
But I want your response to this question.
Right, an email interview, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I guess you could do it over email, or have them do it voice-wise or whatever.
Right. I mean, I think you made a good point. If especially,
it'd be better over voice. Be like, hey, but it's hard to get them to do little sound bites.
But I mean, the problem here for me is it'd be more work and more time for me to edit a bunch of stuff together to make an episode out of a bunch of Q&As like that.
All right.
Like, okay, they'll be like, okay, guys, here's our 10 questions. We've done this 10 questions a bunch of time. Here's, John Smith's answers to the 10 questions. And he goes down and does that.
Well, you can break it up by topic. You
I know, but I'm just saying,
question 1 with
either way,
8 candidates.
Right,
this is how candidate.
Right, and I could say, well, the candidate A, B, and C, this is their answer to question 1.
Right.
And I could edit them all together. But that editing them all together is more time process than I want. That is more time process than figuring out how to get them in here and just talking about stuff. Right. I agree. We should absolutely work up a question list by seat that we're seeking, or by seat that we're talking to. County commission, judges, DA's office, mayor, all those, we should work them all up by, with some specific questions that, some of them more general questions, like maybe 5 questions that we ask everybody, and then 5 questions that are more defined to the job that they are seeking, and have those on hand. And so when I do interviews, I can go through and do a rapid fire version. Like we do my normal show about an hour long. Last 10 minutes, 10 questions, go. I think that'd be a great little format to do so that we can have everybody answer the same questions. Right. At least everybody that's running for the same seat answer the exact same questions.
All right.
Everybody answer a series of 4 or 5 questions that are exactly the same for everybody. And then after this election's over, I can go back or when it gets to the tail end of the election and I quit my day job so I can spend all fucking day doing this. I can go edit all together. Here's everybody's answer to question 1. But it's going to be 100 fucking people. It's legitimately going to be 100 people for this August if I get everybody. Now, realistically, I'm not trying to get everybody at the state level. Actually, yeah, I mean, I'd like to. I mean, really looking down at, the only person I don't think I can get, realistically, is Mayor Jacobs. And I think if I can find out, and I'm pretty sure, I guarantee you Matt will give me whoever they're going to put up against him. And I bet you if I can get his opponent, I can get him. And I can have Kane sitting in that fucking chair. Not really, I'm getting rid of that chair.
It's probably a good idea.
That's an awesome chair. You guys suck.
It's not that comfortable.
I like that chair.
What do you think's awesome about it?
It's beautifully ugly. It's like a pug, man.
I'm glad you threw the ugly part in there.
It is. It's like a pug, dude. It's like a pug. There's nothing beautiful about it, but it's beautiful.
It's beautifully ugly.
It's a perfect animal. Anyway,
it's beautiful to a fault.
I'm gonna get a table down here. We're gonna do it conference table style. So I'm gonna shift this to a conference table. So instead of sitting I'm gonna get more of the chairs like yours. Do you still have that chair that you told me that you had forever ago that I never took? Another office chair like the one you got right now?
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not leather.
I don't care. I'm not sitting in it.
It's been sitting outside for a while. I probably could do a little cleaning.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to get...
It a little bit nice. I mean, it's like a wooden back, but I mean, it's got a nice, like, padded bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put a conference table style in here. So
I got another idea we can talk about after the show.
Okay. All right, last call for the actual show?
Yeah, that went by pretty fast. Yeah, nothing specific.
I mean, I feel like you got something else for me. These people have missed us for a week, so if we go long, they'll be all right.
We can go long. What else is going on in the world?
I mean,
I was going to make a point, but I don't want to.
Omicron Persei 8's happening.
No, I mean, you referenced at the very beginning of the show that I was going to be very happy that we didn't get into sports.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, don't
be like, I succeeded.
All right, so
we evaded fucking sports.
So to put it on record, real quick, I wanted to talk to everybody about predictions for football going on since you have all this product talked about football. Because I honestly, I push back on AC.
Has anybody other than you and AC talked about product?
No, but I mean, Max will get in on actual football conversations. But I don't want to go back into the product thing. This is not a product conversation. This is a. I wanted everybody to put their predictions in for
college playoffs,
for who's going to be in the playoffs before tomorrow, which is yesterday for everybody listening. But I wanted to do it before we had the championship games that are going on this weekend. Because I think if Alabama wins, Alabama's in. Georgia's in either way. Georgia's in, win or lose tomorrow. And so the conversation is how do we figure out how to screw Cincinnati? That's really the conversation.
And is there a scenario that Georgia and Alabama would play again?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Alabama wins tomorrow. Alabama's in. Georgia is in, win or lose tomorrow. I think that is a lock.
Who is number one at this moment?
Georgia.
Okay.
Georgia's 12-0 out of the SEC. That's a lock. They're in now.
But they don't play each other for the SEC championship.
They do tomorrow.
Oh, that's what's going on tomorrow. Okay.
Right.
This isn't part of the regular season.
Right. Regular season's over. We're at SEC with the championship weekend right now.
Okay.
All right. So if Alabama beats Georgia, Alabama at 12-1 gets in. Georgia gets in at 12-1. If Georgia beats Alabama, Alabama's out.
Completely? You think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're already 11.
Unless Michigan loses to Iowa, and even if that's the case,
Alabama's already 11-1.
Yeah, they lost the game. They lost to. I forgot. Yeah, Alabama lost the game already.
LSU.
No, it was A&M. I think it was Texas A&M. I think so. It was.
Oh wow.
Anyway, so and they struggled beating Auburn last week, which is another little factor that goes in there. So I think. I think Notre Dame's a lock, which is funny about Brian Kelly quitting because he's leaving. He already left Notre Dame to go to LSU because he can recruit better at LSU because LSU doesn't have as high as academic standards as Notre Dame does. But so I think Michigan beats Iowa. Michigan's in. I think Georgia beats Alabama. Georgia's in. I think Cincinnati's in because they win their conference championship game. But I think Cincinnati will come in as 4. And then it's whether Oklahoma State or Notre Dame. And this is where it gets wonky. And I really think they're going to figure out how to screw. I think Cincinnati. I honestly think I think if Alabama wins, Cincinnati's out. I think Alabama wins, and then it's Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State, maybe Notre Dame. Because right now, before we started, the Oregon-Utah game was on, and so Oregon's got no shot. Utah's beating shit out of Oregon, so Oregon's out of conversation. So the Pac-12's done, and then but Pitt Pitt, who we lost to earlier this year.
Who won the
they're
Ohio
going to win
State
the
Michigan
ACC.
last weekend?
Michigan did. But Ohio State lost earlier this year to Wisconsin? No, Wisconsin.
Cincy? Oh. I don't give a...
Ohio State already lost. Ohio State... No, Michigan and Ohio State are both one loss. I don't remember who Michigan lost to, but I think they lost to Michigan State. But anyway, so they're both one loss, but they're in the same subdivision of the Big Ten. And so since Michigan beat Ohio State head-to-head, that's how they beat the tiebreaker. That's how they're going to the championship game.
Yeah.
Michigan loses to Iowa, things get real weird, in my opinion. I think that's that would turn the craziest on top of the crazy if Michigan loses to Iowa. I think that would get really funky. But I think right now, I think Georgia. I think it'd be a perfect world. Georgia beats Alabama by 5. Make me super happy. Actually, yeah. Somehow it's 32-27. No, that doesn't work. Fuck, I got to do math. I have 7-0 in the board too, so I need Alabama to have 7. Whatever. 50-7. Georgia wins. No, that's not good either. Anyway, 10-7. 10-7. Georgia wins. I'm a happy camper. But I think Georgia wins. Fairly close. Not a blowout, but less than a touchdown. I think Georgia wins that game. Alabama's out of conversation. So I think Georgia's there. I think Michigan beats Iowa. Michigan's in. I think Cincinnati wins their game. And I think Oklahoma State wins their game. And it's whether or not Notre Dame sneaks in. And if Notre Dame sneaks in, I think they kick out Oregon State or Oklahoma State. So I think it's Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. That's my pick for the invitational, as AC likes to put it. Predictions?
Don't give a fuck.
Not giving a fuck heard. I like to talk about it. I think to me, and this is what this is what I think. This is one of those, same as my stupid altruism, same as my stupid entertainment conversation. This is one of those where I think I fundamentally look at it different than a lot of people. I like the conversation. I like the argument about it. That's what I like about college football. I like having that conversation where we can go like, well, but Oregon beat whoever, and Ohio State beat this, and you know, Ohio State should get in because Cincinnati's in the conference of bullshit and blah blah blah. Like, I like that part of the conversation. I think that's what makes college football fun. Is having this argument, having this conversation, and by having a tournament, even 4 teams, let alone 6, 8, 12, 32, whatever the fuck Max was talking about a couple weeks ago, making a huge tournament out of it, while it's viable and it make money and all that kind of stuff, sure, whatever. To me, the joy of college football is having the argument, is having this discussion that, you know, these teams deserve it, these teams don't, and my opinion fucking matters, no. But, like, that is the joy of college football to me, and where pro is different in the sake that this is stat. You win your division, you're in. You have a record of this, you're in. This is what you need to get into the playoffs. I like that about pro ball, too. I like pro ball a lot. I love my Packers. I love pro football. I think it's a well-designed league. It does a good job, for the most part, of being a pretty good parity. And for the most part, any weekend, any team beats anybody. You know, even the best team in the league can lose to the worst team in the league.
So I was to say, any given Sunday.
Right. And I love that about pro ball. But I like but that's why I like them as different games, is that college ball is so much different. But that argument, that the get into this part of the year where, like, no, my team deserves to be there, this team deserves to be there, that, like, that's what I enjoy about college football. And so to make it into I have the solution. I've already broken it down, I think, on the show. Like, you want to make college football a statistical, no conversation, this is who's in the playoffs thing. I have the solution for that. We can do that. But that's no fun. Like, the fun is the argument. The fun is figuring out how they're going to screw Cincinnati this year, because Cincinnati at 12-0 doesn't really deserve to be there because they haven't played anybody. But they deserve to be there because they're the only 12-0 team except for Georgia. And some, like, like the weird, random, whatever.
Boise State argument.
Yeah. But that's what's fun about college ball. And Boise State was probably the fruition to me of where this comes from. Is that Boise State, like 5 years straight, when they went and they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl that year with the Statue of Liberty at the end of the game. It was gorgeous. It's one of those great moments in sports. And it proved that they could play with the big boys, that this weird team out of this smaller conference could get up there, play weird football, and beat a big team. And they did it.
Did they actually play weird trick plays? Or
a couple. They won the game on a Statue of Liberty. Oh. Do you know what the Statue of Liberty is?
I'm trying to remember it vaguely.
It's trick play. Anyway.
I know it's a trick play. I'm trying to remember exactly like how it works. But.
Right. But the point is, they did it. They weren't supposed to be there. I mean, Oregon football now, who's become like a standard, but Oregon football, they changed the way you played college football. They did a bunch of things a lot different than that was a Chip Kelly thing when Chip Kelly was coaching there. They did a bunch of weird stuff, and it changed the game of football because of what they were doing, because they changed the way you played the game, blah, blah, blah. That was what was fun. Like, Oregon didn't have a football team. Nobody gave a shit about Oregon football 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But now that they've been established, they're now a name that everybody recognizes. But my point, I guess my whole point is, I think that's the joy of college football. The joy of college football right now, especially, as we get to this part of the year, and it's like, who deserves to be, who is a national championship team? Who is the best team in the country?
Yeah, I feel like,
and it's so broad that you have an argument. You can make an argument for a number of teams, and that's what's fun to me, is making that argument and be like, okay, I see what you're saying there. I see what you're saying, that, like, because to me, traditionally, years past, the SEC was the division. You win the SEC, you're the best team in the country. I don't care. But I think the Big Ten is taking over that. I think the Big Ten has more better teams than the SEC does right now.
They used to. I mean, for a while, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State were
Michigan State, Wisconsin, Iowa, year in and year out now.
Michigan State wasn't as big for a while.
They weren't as big, but you had, like, I mean, a Big Ten, which is actually an 11-team conference for most of the time. They just went to 14 now, but Big Ten was 6. This year, Big Ten was 5 teams, 6 teams. Good teams, high-caliber teams. The SEC is really only like 3. Maybe 4. Not like they used to be. It used to be that, like, that middle-of-the-pack SEC could go out and, I mean, like, again, the product conversation would be, can Tennessee football right now, this Tennessee team that we saw this year, are they going to go win their bowl game? We don't know who they're going to play yet. We don't know what bowl game they're going to yet. But are they going to go win their bowl game?
I think we've already had a couple players leave.
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Once you go into the transfer portal, I guess you're still part of the team?
I'm just saying, does Tennessee go beat Wisconsin in a bowl game? No. I don't think so either. But years past, any SEC team that made it to a bowl game, your gut reaction is the SEC team's going to win. Didn't always happen, but your gut reaction was that SEC teams wouldn't beat anybody.
True.
But that's not how it is anymore. Now, Tennessee plays USC. Yeah, we're beating USC. I don't think the USC is bowl eligible this year, to be honest. But, I mean, hell, I think Tennessee's beating Clemson this year.
I mean, USC used to be a big team.
Right.
Stanford used to be a big team.
Stanford's a come-and-go team. They have years. When they had Christian McCaffrey, they were legit. But, all right. Last call. Official last call. We got our sports in, even though you brought the sports in on last call.
It's true. Nothing specific.
All right, guys. We're going to try to stay back a little bit more regular than we've been. I'm going to try to get more interviews. I got a ton of people to talk to. It's going to be rough. I'm excited. Outro?
No.
Come on, Sam. Damn it.
No.
I'm supposed to do it before the song started. All right, we're almost agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Apparently, we have an Instagram. We're still trying to figure that out. Go to your favorite podcast provider, look us up. While you're looking us up, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And just for fun, go to a different podcast subscriber and subscribe from there, too. That'd be fun, too. Our website's almostagreement.com. All the episodes are on there as well. Please do what you can. Like, share, follow. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take you any time. Just give whatever that positive bump-up thing is. I need my endorphins pushed to make me feel better about myself. But we're going to keep pushing. I'm going to find some more people. We're going to start talking to some of these people that are pretending like they want to run for these offices. And we're going to talk to them. Maybe try to find a couple people that know a little bit more about specifically what those jobs are as well. So we're almost in agreement. keep your ear to the ground. We're going to keep doing what we do. Sam, last words?
Keep on keeping on. Be good to each other, please.
I've been watching Cowboy Bebop, so you go 1, 2, 3, let's jam.